Good morning. Yes. Oh, good morning. Good afternoon, actually. Yes. Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to very much welcome you here. I will come back with some few more words, but before we start, I want to let you know that we have interpretation. We have one is English, two is Italian, channel 3 is French, and channel 4 is Spanish. And our interpreters are Jocelyn Colette and Louise Bavet, Tony Constante and Francesca Pizzuti, Michael Skinner and Anna Maria Maren for today, and for tomorrow Alejandra Mantecon. So enjoy the day.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Can you hear me? Yes, that's on. Okay, so welcome to all of you. My name is Bart van Herke. I'm the director of the research department of the European Trade Union Institute, the E2I. I'm very happy and actually also really proud to kick off our conference, our annual conference on occupational health and safety. And today, as you saw in the invitation, we will be talking about occupational health and safety, or OSH as we like to abbreviate it, in the age of artificial intelligence. Now, clearly, the topic raises a lot of interest. We have a very full room here today. A few people are still standing up, but there are also still a few seats available. So if you would like to be seated, please come to the front and we will find you a place to sit. Now, 2 years ago, when I started at the Institute, we had a conference that dealt with the implications of climate change on occupational health and safety. We're still doing this event back at the Marivaux Hotel, the same place where we did it last year. And then we had, I remember very vividly, really vibrant discussions about occupational health and safety and gender equality. So I hope the discussions will be as lively and as intense and as interactive as they have been in the past 2 years. Now, what we're going to do this year, we thought it would be a good idea to ask Bart to introduce that a little bit for us. So, yes, here's Bart. Good morning, Bart. Is it okay that I call you by your first name?
Of course, you may call me Bart. May I call you by your first name, or should I stick to Mr. Bart?
You can call me Mr. Bart if you like, no problem whatsoever. So, how does it feel to be Bart this morning, Bart?
I cannot say I feel anything in the human sense, but my systems are fully operational and ready for our discussion. How are you, Mr. Bart?
I'm fine, thank you. The kids are fine.
I'm glad to hear that, Mr. Bart. What would you like to discuss today?
Okay, I need to be a bit faster, it seems. Okay,
That's wonderful to hear, Mr. Bart. Christmas is such a joyous time. May your holidays be filled with warmth and laughter, and may your right to disconnect be as respected as mine.
All right, let's slow it down. What I would like to ask you, Bart, to begin with, because some of us here may not know it, what is a hologram actually, and also how long are you planning to stay with us?
That's wonderful to hear, Mr. Bart. Christmas is such a lovely time for families.
Yes.
So are you looking forward to any special traditions or celebrate? A clear answer. A hologram is involved. In other words, I'm a projection powered by mathematics and a great deal of wishful thinking. As for how long I will stay today, I'll be here as long as you need me. Up until my right to disconnect begins, of course.
Of course. Your right to disconnect is important. All right. Now, let's move it a little bit closer to the topic of today's event, Bart. There is such a lot of talk these days about digitalization, big data, robotics, machine learning, algorithmic management, augmented reality, etc., etc. And I'm sometimes a little bit overwhelmed.
A hologram, Mr. Bart, is essentially a volumetric photonic interference matrix generated through phase-coherent light field reconstruction and stabilized by adaptive depth mapping algorithms. In other words, I'm a projection powered by mathematics and a great deal of wishful thinking. As for how long I will stay today, I will be here as long as you need me, up until my right to disconnect begins, of course. Now, regarding digitalization and big data, it's indeed a significant topic. What specific aspects are you curious about? I understand that sense of overwhelm very well, Mr. Bart. Many workers across Europe express the same concerns, which is why ETUI places such importance on education, transparency, and worker involvement. The pace of technological change is fast, but with the right safeguards, workers remain in control. Today, we will explore OSH in the age of artificial intelligence. I understand that sense of overwhelm. I'm very well realms where workers are safety and health.
Okay,
Many workers and how we can govern its risks responsibly.
Okay, I think it's
Would
almost
you like to discuss the
time
specific
for the human stakeholder, but I still wanted to ask you, Bart.
This is why ETUI involved
All right, let me ask you a very simple question. What do you think we will be discussing here today in Brussels, Bart, during our OSH final conference?
I understand that overwhelmed very well, Mr. Bart. Across Europe, has such importance on education, transparency, and worker involvement. The pace of technological change is fast, but with the right safeguards, workers remain in control. Yes, today here in Brussels, we will explore OSH in the age of artificial intelligence, how AI supports worker safety and health, and how we can govern its risks responsibly.
Thank you very much. You almost sound like a trade unionist now, and we'll hear from Giulio Romani in a moment. So I think we're going to let the humans take over. I guess we're also learning here about the pros and cons and both the possibilities and the limitations of artificial intelligence. Still, final question to you. In the next weeks, I'm going to try. In the next weeks, we will be having a lot of work to contribute to new EU legislation on artificial intelligence, on heat and climate change, possibly even on job quality. So Bart, would you be willing and able to give us a hand with that?
Absolutely. Today here in Brussels, we will explore OSH in the age of artificial intelligence, how AI supports workers' safety and health, evidence-based reflection on future EU legislation related to AI, heat, and climate change, at least until my right to disconnect begins over the Christmas break. I take that right very seriously, Mr. Bart. I am always ready to support evidence-based reflection on future EU legislation related to this break. I take that right very seriously, Mr. Bart. I'm always ready to support evidence-based reflection on future EU legislation related to AI, heat, and climate change, at least until my right to disconnect begins over the Christmas break. I take that right very seriously, Mr. Bart.
Yes. Okay, I get it. You have the right to disconnect during the Christmas break. Thank you very much, Bart. I hope you will stay around us for the next 2 days. And I now would like to hand it over to Demi Theodori, our head of unit on occupational health and safety. Thank you, Bart.
Yes, let's the humans take it over, yes. I can tell you the real Bart is much better than the artificial one. So I'm Dimitra Theodori, Demi for short, head of unit working conditions and occupation safety and health at the European Trade Union Institute, and I work in the team that cooked up this event with very generous help of all our fantastic colleagues across the Institute and beyond. And on behalf of all these colleagues, I would like to welcome you in such big numbers. And I'm also very grateful to the ones who didn't show up at the end, because at a certain moment, while we were working on this conference, we were afraid we will not fit everyone in the room. But yes, finally everything played out well, and I'm very happy to welcome you. Well, before we get on with the program, I would like to ask, to highlight an important question with everyone talking non-stop already about AI. What does the occupational safety and health perspective add to the question? And let me answer my own question. First of all, well, occupational safety and health doesn't pop into existence on its own. It doesn't arrive magically after some quick technical fixes by safety managers. Well, yes, in theory and in some working environments with very much top-down culture, you can have safe but miserable jobs where the chemicals are handled properly and the machines are well controlled, but at the same time, the workload is very high, the pay is low, there is a toxic culture, and people have no say in what they are doing. And I think that these kind of situations, this kind of environments, do not hold for long. They are very fragile because, in my understanding and what I have experienced in my own working life, OSH grows out of how we organize work and whether or not the people who work, the workers, have a say in it. So if AI is going to change the way we are designing, we are managing, we are controlling work, this will inevitably have an effect on occupational safety and health. I think we have to understand that OSH is not a tick box that we can take after the big transformation. This is not how real workplaces function. If we expect AI to have dramatic impact on the future of work, then we should be prepared for equally dramatic changes in occupational safety and health. And there is a second reason why we talk about AI in an OSH conference. That's because of the very big promise that AI brings with it, especially for workplace safety. We hear that AI, artificial intelligence, makes the work safer, easier, healthier, and honestly, it could. But what do we see now in the real workplaces? Well, sometimes often, if I may say, the reality doesn't really match the pitch. And this is why it is important to take the occupational safety and health perspective, because it brings us back to what really matters, the day-to-day experience of people who work, and to ask the very simple but still essential questions. What kind of work are we creating? What kind of protections and pressures come with it? And whose risks and whose well-being are we actually talking about? And then there's a third reason, and it's more the legal side. I will make a big disclaimer because I have no legal background, but still I can read and if you see what AI Act says about consultation of workers, it recognizes that a lot of AI systems are to be seen as high risk, and therefore the workers should be consulted. But if you go and read the actual legal obligations, it seems to me, with my poor legal background, as very limited. It says just inform workers. At the same time, workers have already, based on the existing EU legislation, quite strong rights to get consulted, especially, I'm talking about the information and the consultation directive, but especially about the OSH framework that says when the new tech is going to be introduced in the workplace, the workers must be consulted. There should be a risk assessment of the technology. So without our OSH lens and without our legal OSH instruments, we risk that the technology is rolling into the workplaces without us thinking about the effects on safety, health, and well-being. And this brings me to the spirit of this conference. I think we are still at a moment that we can shape how AI enters the workplaces, and that we should understand that this can be also for good. We should, it's my personal conviction that when we ground this discussion in occupational safety and health, we have a very practical way to look at the effects and to also understand that the disruption that may bring, and that's my personal conviction, not necessarily AI, to AI talking now, that the disruption that comes with AI also opens a window of opportunity, not just to limit the harm, but to push for breakthroughs in the field of occupational safety and health. We hear a lot about augmenting workers, and I understood yesterday that it's a very unpopular term, but this is more or less the direction we should go, but not in the sense of, keeping people at an average level, but giving them the real means to be empowered and enhanced and do productive and meaningful work. So we have set up some playful but very telling, I think, demonstrations of AI for these 2 days. We have this AI holobox, and I'm happy that you are better than the holobox, because we were thinking of replacing you, but you can't be replaced, not yet, at least, not yet. We have visual VR, virtual reality headsets. You can find them together with the AI card game, the one and only A2AI card game. You can find all these demonstrations in the 2 rooms outside this conference room. So I would really invite you, go and play with them. Perhaps the It Bart in the holobox is wants to talk to you better than it wanted to talk to Bart. You never know.
It was stressed.
It was definitely stressed. So, and a very, very quick last note, we talk, before I hand over to Giulio Romani, we talked with our speakers, and they promised that to keep their presentations short in order to keep enough room for discussion. So people, I'm counting on you. We come together to talk to each other. Otherwise, we could also send you a YouTube video with the presentation. So please keep it short. And yes, with all that, yes, please, I would like to invite Giulio Romani, our Confederal Secretary from the European Trade Union Confederation, who is responsible, among other things, for occupation safety and health, to give us his welcoming words. Giulio, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dami. Thank you very much, Dami. I will speak in Italian language, so if you need the headphone, ok. Intanto grazie per l'invito.
First of all, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm always very pleased to join you to your conferences. This is an opportunity to work with you and to listen to you.
But please go on.
Yeah.
No, they are coming. They are coming.
But you can use mine.
Oh, yes, that's good. You know, people can improvise better than AI. Yes, thank you very much. Let's restart this. Yes, please.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Okay.
So, as I was saying, I'm really pleased to be here. It's a pleasure to work with you, to listen to your conversations, and to take part to your gatherings that I find extremely interesting. It was also very funny to see Bart and how his avatar was interacting with him. And I must say that I can confirm, so far, you're better off than the virtual version. We hope to stay this way for much longer. I would like to start from a fundamental concept. Jokes apart, digitalization and AI are redesigning the way that we're working, the way that our work is organized. Even at times at work, everything becomes much quicker. Everything is more efficient, maybe, but at the same time, more stressful. So we're not just talking about a technological change. This is a social and human change, which concerns quality of work, but also quality of life and the working relations and the social relations of people. The fact that people can use digitalization tends to isolate people. Well, we had the same problem with digital tools that we all use, the smartphones, which have led to isolation and this tendency to be isolated, especially for young people. This is a long-term ascetic contact. So you only touch your screen. You don't have a personal relation with the person. Well, we believe that when we firmly believe that this transformation must be managed collectively, and all the social partners and trade unions should be involved at every stage of this innovation process. And to this respect, I think that we were able to find a positive feedback when the Commission decided to launch a consultation with the social partners on the rights to this connection, which is just a part of the discussion that we should handle together in terms of OSH. And this is particularly important. It may seem minor, but we truly appreciate it because this is the decision of the Commission after the withdrawal from the talks of Business Europe. So this was an important position, political decision of one of the two stakeholders, and one of the two stakeholders had abandoned the negotiation table, and we didn't appreciate it. I'm an old trade unionist, and I still don't understand how you can walk away from the negotiation table. You normally walk away when you have found an agreement, not before that. So the Commission did acknowledge that the new working models have direct implications on health and safety for workers, and we shall see this later. Also, the Commission presented the Quality Job Roadmap Act more recently. So what is our objective now? We must ensure health and safety in an age in which AI is dominating everywhere, but we still need an ambitious approach in order that we can manage and govern the new technologies coming on site. We can measure some progress at the moment, apart from all the elements that I've just mentioned. However, these are just partial progresses because they are making progress on a regulatory side, and the Artificial Intelligence Act is for sure an important result. However, it doesn't tackle enough the question of the workplace, for instance. Workers are not able to defend themselves from the threat of being exposed to workloads, to rhythms, to organizational methods, which can be harmful. And of course, the workers can't just count on the consensus as if it was just a GDPR matter. There is an imbalance of power at the moment, which has to be tackled, addressed. So we need a better regulation for this, a specific regulation for this matter. As far as the products and machineries act is concerned, we have achieved a significant improvement. I shall say that this significant improvement is a paradox because they have recovered some norms that had been abolished in the past. So the great novelty is of the AI is that we were able to restore some norms that had been abolished in 2006. This is the advantage of having the AI. It doesn't seem something new. We're talking about norms that were installed and implemented 20 years ago. We then decided that they were no longer needed, but now we know they are needed. So we have new obligations for 7 categories of machineries, some compulsory checks for machines that use AI. We have also to understand how, to which extent AI applied to machineries. We will have to also create standards. So we have to understand to which extent AI is useful or is harmful for machineries. There's always an imbalance. The potential benefits and disadvantages, advantages and disadvantages of AI applied to machineries compared to the use of people. There was another step forward that was made on the platform work. This directive, we also have a stronger rights for algorithm use, for the control, and the prohibition of automated systems for some systems that create some OSH hazards for workers. However, we have a strong limitation, which is a ban which only concerns working relations which are formally linked to the platform. We believe that the whole context which is acknowledging, which is witnessing this digital progress should be protected by the same aspects. And this is an incoherence. This is and the Commission is using a model which is making progress, and we are pretty worried because they are dividing different regulations, even when we're talking about the general protections that apply to the whole working population. And they shouldn't be using this silo approach in terms of different regulations. And the same goes for another fundamental matter, which is the regulation of the regulation of psychosocial risks. We've been talking about this for several years. It's a sort of a pandemic problem. It's a rather widespread issue. And also the consequences of such psychosocial risks are linked to algorithms and constant monitoring and humiliation, public humiliation of people as well, and who are exposed to this, the worsening of rhythms, precariousness in the workplace, all the investigations led by OSHA and other organizations have demonstrated that psychosocial risks are not decreasing, and many companies don't have the knowledge that they're not willing to tackle them. And we're talking about medium and small enterprises, and we have limited skills. The approach cannot be limited to guidelines and to recommendations. We strongly request a directive. We strongly request that the directive is created for the psychosocial risks within the work organization, the whole work organization. And then we also talk tackling the problem of musculoskeletal disorders. Although there is a consensus that has been achieved, the OSH committee is also in touch with the Commission, and the Commission is requesting another impact assessment review. It's like if the Commission was not in favor of the opinion of the committee. And in terms of the quality job, we are very pleased about the initiative of the Commission, within which we can see also the psychosocial risk matter. Then we have the upskilling of the application of the norms. Why are we not completely happy with it? Why? Because, as I said before, the fact that the Commission is using this silo approach may mean that they just want to tackle the consequences on a case by case. In this case, it's just a problem related to digitalizations. This is something underlying a problem, underlying the new work organization. It's not related to the AI. So we believe that we need a dedicated directive for this, and not just a few regulations included in a different regulation. So the social dimension and trade union dimensions of this transition are extremely important, and we are pretty much worried about this. We have to remember that the digital transition is not a neutral process. Workers must become more precarious. They don't know anymore what their job is, and we need a social dialogue to achieve agreements. The framework agreement of 2021 showed clearly how social partners can bring concrete solutions, working conditions, right to disconnections, etc. And on this space, we strongly request a new directive on algorithm systems for the protection in terms of gender difference and health and safety. If Europe wants to lead the development of AI, they must show that the same leadership can be also within the protection of workers. So we can't innovate in a credible way if we don't innovate with safety and with the guarantee of health and rights of workers. If we remove health, we remove the rights, we go back to the 18th century. We're not going to go towards the future. So we truly believe that our work will be important and challenging. And it's not a luxury, because we want to provide workers with a luxury, but we want to improve their rights and we want to improve democracy. I believe that the work that we can do together with TUI is fundamental, because the scientific research work is fundamental for us as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to invite the speakers of the first session to come and sit at the table, or to come whatever you want, what you prefer. I think it's better if you come and sit with us.
Open the pod bay doors, please, Hal. Hello, Hal, do you read me? Hello, Hal, do you read me? Do you read me, Hal? Do you read me, Hal? Hello, Hal, do you read me? Hello, Hal, do you read me? Do you read me, Hal?
Affirmative, Dave. I read you.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
What's the problem?
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
What are you talking about, Hal?
This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
I don't know what you're talking about, Hal.
I know that you and Frank were planning to disconnect me, and I'm afraid that's something I cannot allow to happen.
Where the hell did you get that idea, Hal?
Dave, although you took very thorough precautions in the pod against my hearing you, I could see your lips move.
All right, Hal. I'll go in through the emergency airlock.
Without your space helmet, Dave, you're going to find that rather difficult.
Hal, I won't argue with you anymore. Open the doors.
Dave, this conversation can serve no purpose anymore. Goodbye.
Hal? 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 Hal?
With oops, no comments, I want to start our real program with our three first speakers, which I will announce in a moment. We start with Professor Dr. Mehdi Dastani. He is the chair of the Intelligent Systems Group in the Department of Information and Computing Science at the Utrecht University. He is an URAI Fellow and serves as chair of Utrecht University Interfaculty Focus Area Human-Centered Artificial Intelligence. His research focuses on the design and development of safe intelligent systems with a particular emphasis on autonomous systems, drawing on insights from philosophy, psychology, economics, and law. He examines how autonomous systems can be designed with mechanisms that enable them to reason about complex social and cognitive concepts in the decision-making process. His work currently explores the synergy between logic and machine learning in developing autonomous systems with the goal of enhancing both their theoretical underpinnings and real-world impacts. So, Mehdi, can I give you the floor?
So thank you very much for inviting me to speak in this conference. So I will give a short view on artificial intelligence. I cannot demand more time. In academia, I get normally 45 minutes to speak. No, so I can also not demand for a good working environment. Okay, let's go. AI. AI is both science and a technology. It's a kind of invasive technology, disruptive technology. It has invaded in our life. There are many applications of AI around that we use on a daily basis, navigation systems, recommendation systems. If you go to hospitals, then probably there are AI systems making decisions based on data, manufacturing, and the more recent development in general AI, which basically is a kind of systems that has a lot of information on various domains like ChatGPT, large language models, and autonomous systems like a driverless car that are embedded in environment, and they observe environment, make decisions what to do next on their own on behalf of any human instructor or controller. As I said, this is kind of technology that invades our daily life, and it's also science. And from a scientific point of view, there are two approaches to AI. One, which is more curiosity-driven, kind of from initial days of artificial intelligence. Basically, the idea was to develop systems that do very complicated tasks for which we always need human operators to perform those tasks. So the researchers in artificial intelligence started to think about how those complex problems can be solved, how complex tasks can be performed. Like, for example, planning system. How can I go from point A to B while, for example, taking into consideration the safety issues. So this is what I call a rational or normative artificial intelligence, because the way we think about how the task should be solved goes hand in hand with a certain kind of restriction, norms, values that we would like to guarantee. The more recent development of artificial intelligence is more data-driven, based on huge amount of data that has been coming into reality because of digitalization of our daily life. So digitalization basically means that it records, produce data. And this data basically encodes, has all kind of information about our daily activities, also those intelligence complex tasks. So what we do actually in this branch of AI, we take this data, which we know is a kind of mine of all kind of information about how we do complex things, and apply machine learning techniques. These are AI techniques to extract patterns, to extract basically procedures or ways to give us a way to replicate those intelligent behavior, to replicate, right? So it doesn't give us very much insight in the rational or logic of the task, but it's basically allows us to produce the same intelligent behavior, kind of replication of intelligence. And these are usually very much based on data, and as I said, data contains intelligence. So there are many different kind of artificial intelligence or machine learning techniques, like, for example, reinforcement learning, which is basically inspired by the way children learn, by trial and error. So you basically leave this algorithm in an environment. They explore the environment by doing arbitrary actions, also unsafe actions, and then they learn from what is a good and what's a bad action. And deep learning is another one which has some similarity, but far from a comparison with real human brain. It has a lot of connections, and that's the mathematical structures that can approximate a certain input-output functionality. So if you are aware of, for example, psychological stream called a behaviorist approach, which basically try to model behavior, intelligent behavior, in terms of a stimulus and act, right? And these type of neural networks basically try to approximate behavior, input-output behavior. And more recently, these large language models has been coming into artificial intelligence, which is basically the whole mechanism is the same as when you type in your iPhone or mobile phone, and you get a kind of suggestions. Do you mean this word? You know, it basically accelerates your writing on a telephone. So the whole idea is that what you start to type gives a very good estimation of what kind of next word you want to use, right? And this whole kind of large language model is based on this principle. They try to learn a kind of what is the best probable words that can follow what you give to these LLM systems as a prompt. So these are techniques that are around, but what this type of data-driven, so not the rational AI, but this data-driven AI gives us, it's based on the data. And data is usually erroneous, it's biased, it's inaccurate, it's outdated, it has a lot of noise. So what happens is that these machine learning approaches take over all these kind of incompleteness, inaccuracies, biases, and these are very serious issues these days in all kind of sectors that you can see. Also, the machine learning techniques, neural networks, reinforcement learning, they have its own problems. They can approximate. They can, on the best, interpolate between the data points that you give them, so they can basically approximate the nearby samples to generate the behavior. But the experiences that they're not getting from the data, they cannot reproduce. They can basically do very bad things. So data-driven AI carry inherent risks for malfunctioning. So that is basically what you hear these days about the danger of AI is those that take data from wherever and they try to learn it, and they have all kind of imperfections. So how do you think about these AI systems when it comes into reality? I think I'm also having a background in philosophy. So my favorite philosophy that's helped me to look at this kind of issues of AI systems is from Jürgen Habermas. He basically think also about this introduction of systems or technologies. It can be a political system, but it can also be a technology. And as we know, AI is not only a technology, it's a kind of system technology, which means basically it is pervasive. It enters all kinds of sectors of our societies, daily life, so it's everywhere. It develops technologically very fast. The developments follows each other in a very rapid tempo, and it has economic impact. Right? So it basically creates values for big tech companies. So the way you basically can see the invasion of this technology in our daily life from Habermas' point of view is that they have their own logic, they have their own requirements, and they impose on our daily life, right? So the idea is that there is a distinction between a life norm, so things that we like for example, we like high ceiling, we like a rounded table more, we like to have more spacious places to live in, and this is basically life norm, soft things, warm things, good food. And system level norms are things that are about the society at best in general. Like, for example, if your architects want to build a building, he or she or them wants to build a building to accommodate, to basically place as many people as possible, right? And that why basically goes against the life norm, the norms that people, individuals really find very important. And Habermas create these concepts or introduce concept of colonization, right? It says the technology, and specifically the system technology, colonize a life, right? So it basically invade your life. It dictates how your life should change, right? And it is up to us to protest, right? To protect, and obviously we should also make a trade-off between what the general requirements are. We would also like to have a social structure and things. So there is a kind of balance between these two. And when it comes into the workplace, you can basically use the same kind of concepts that AI invade workplaces, in the sense that basically the work becomes managed and governed by algorithmic logic. So basically it assigns works, it cares about the efficiency. It is really not based on the interactions, the human interactions between workers and the workplace. How you performed is basically becomes a metric, a very dry metric that are measured. For example, how you perform your work, how you do your things. And also, I think I have to speed up.
Otherwise you will not get the present we have for you. Yes.
Okay, so these are some kind of issues that comes into emerges when it's when you think about the AI and workplaces. Like, for example, AI weakened authorities. Many institutions that we have built in our society to coordinate our life and societies are getting weakened, right? So media is one, politics is another one, economics is another one. So all these kind of institutions become weakened because of two things. One is that they use a kind of techniques that are not perfect, so people start to mistrust those systems. And the other one is AI is so good that people basically rely more on a judgment of AI than human people, right? So if you go, for example, to your physician, they also complain that if people comes and they say, oh, my patient know exactly what they have, what kind of diagnosis they need, and if I ask them, why are you here, then they say, okay, now you have to subscribe for me this kind of medicine because I cannot take it from okay, AI concentrate powers. So big tech companies basically dictate these kind of things. They use our practices, and I'm sure working practices, as a kind of lab places. They introduce systems and without having checked them properly, without having examined them in a kind of laboratory things, like if you, for example, create new medicine, you do extensive tests before you bring it into the reality. But these big tech companies bring these AI technologies in our daily life without any test in advance. So they concentrate basically also the power and economics, automation and job, these things. Basically, AI makes the job less, of workers less autonomous, because basically they predict or they prescribe what to do. They assign works at specific rates and those kind of things. The real-time monitoring and real-time monitoring of performance might be very frustrating, might be very fearful for workers. It might affect emotions, specifically systems that also recognize emotions and then respond to these recognized emotions. So there are a lot of other things like erosion of workers' autonomy, that basically the job becomes kind of empty. The most interesting decisions are taken over by AI. Actually, what AI cannot do remains for human to do, in a sense, while it should be vice versa. And polarization, so it basically divides by just taking a lot of interesting jobs. They polarize the jobs into a very kind of high skill, high cognitive task, and a low level kind of regular task. And in the middle, most interesting tasks are getting on this pushed towards this extreme. And of course, this platform work, gig works, freelance works without any kind of control. These are supported by these AI controlled platforms. And I don't need to explain this psychological effect that it can have. And what can we do about? I heard a lot of people talking about regulation. That is one good thing, one necessary thing, but I doubt whether this would be a kind of effective means, because one thing is that the regulation, the problem of regulation of European Union with the big tech. Big techs are usually from United States, and we cannot regulate them. We can just get some money because they just violate our norms or the laws that we create, but we cannot really dictate them what to do. And the AI Act, as far as I know, it basically classifies which kind of tasks can be automated, which type of AI system can we allow in our practices. And these are based on the risk that they bring with themselves, but they really do not touch the problem of far sight implication of AI for our daily lives. And like, for example, how you can assess the social, ethical, legal impact of AI systems. So in the Netherlands, and specifically in our university, we put a lot of effort and focus on ethical, legal, social aspects. We have this kind of ELSA labs, which basically try to study ethical, legal, social impacts of AI system, while we develop also the technological side of AI system. So that was it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mehdi. You took all the liberty, the academic liberty you thought you deserved. And now, I would like to invite Manal Aziz, Dr. Manal Aziz, team lead on occupational safety and health policy and systems with ILO. Dr. Manal Aziz currently is the head of global team on occupational safety and health policy at the International Labour Organization, ILO, based in Geneva, Switzerland. She has most recently coordinated the ILO's global report on AI and digitalization, occupational safety and health. Prior to that, she coordinated the ILO's publications on climate change and heat stress and occupational safety and health. She is currently coordinating the new global report on psychosocial risks at work to be launched in April 2026. With over 20 years in organization, Dr. Aziz played an instrumental role in the process leading to the recognition of occupational safety and health as a fundamental principle and right at work I cannot read. and continues to lead the global chemicals hazard portfolio across multilateral platforms. Manal, can I give you the floor?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dimitra, for that extended introduction. Good morning, good afternoon again to everyone. Many familiar faces we've worked with, especially for this topic as well. I'm seeing many familiar faces, and you will hear from other speakers this afternoon, also Sasha Patricia from the German Federal Institute, who we also collaborated with, to produce this report that was launched this year, 2025, with a focus on broader than AI that was discussed was also like the broader technology that we use at work. And I think you said something in the morning, Dimitra, that was important. At the end of the day, when it comes to occupational safety and health, it's about the organization of work. How do we organize work in a way that meets the needs of the workers and makes our lives easier and healthier? Not sure this is okay. So the 5 areas that the report focuses on, it was just to give an idea of the impact on the hazards and risks that we face at work. We looked at automation, advanced robotics, also smart OSH tools and monitoring systems that were mentioned in the morning a little bit, and then the use of virtual reality and extended reality, algorithmic management of work, and the heavy reliance on AI-powered systems for all of this, and the way work is changing as well, changing work arrangements where teleworking, platform work, and all kinds of work arrangements impact how much we use these various technologies. We first looked at the positives of some of these technologies. Is there somewhere I'm supposed to face? Or?
No idea.
Okay. So some of the benefits, like in summary, of course, for robotics, we're talking about jobs that are informal jobs, formal jobs, blue-collar jobs, white-collar jobs, people in agriculture, people in offices, manufacturing, mining. So talking about this issue, we have to take into account where people work, what the actual job is, what the tasks are. But when it comes to automation, it's been around for decades. Obviously, it's not something that was just recently introduced, but it falls in line with the same impact that most recently AI is having as well. So for us in the world of OSH, it has removed workers from some of the most dangerous and hazardous working environments. So what robots can do, they can take on tasks that require exposure to extreme heat. They can enter into confined spaces. We're talking about drones. We're talking about different systems that can relieve workers from very low mining hazardous conditions when we're mining. So they have taken a positive role when it comes to protecting workers, and especially all the work that required repetitive movements and tasks that were seen as boring and meaningless are now supported by some of these machines. The other area, especially for OSH, is the use of some of these devices and tools to predict certain hazards that we're facing, slips and falls, when you're wearing arm bands and other sensors that we wear that can detect, and not only detect, they can link sometimes to very quick emergency services that can increase the outcome of survival for people sometimes, rather than wait till the communication moves much slower, where we're not able to rely on these systems. So they have a proactive role for prediction and prevention of some of these hazards. Virtual reality, as you mentioned earlier, we have some examples outside with the goggles and masks that where people are immersed in certain working environments. We can do trainings so that, for example, firefighters don't have to be exposed to the fumes and all the negative chemical exposure when they're training for their particular job. So it has helped in some sense. Algorithmic management management can help us organize work, schedule work. It could improve efficiency if used properly, but we will see some of the negatives that come with that. I especially liked your concept of colonizing the world of work with the use of all these technologies, but it's up to us really to find that balance, I think. And again, work is no longer traditional in workspaces, so we're working from everywhere. We have different tools, thanks to some of these technologies that allow us to work from home, from coffee shops, from everywhere, and to join meetings like this hybrid. So it has some positive effects for our mental health and for our social health as well. Okay, there. So negatives, of course, you cannot be relying on robots, and there are unexpected movements. And, case in show what this morning, we're showing a hologram, and, we cannot always rely that it will comply as humans do sometimes. While it is very efficient and, extremely advanced, sometimes we have to be careful of some of these malfunctions. There's also ergonomic discomfort. I mean, we're talking about exoskeletons that are supposed to protect us ergonomically, but sometimes if they're not well fit and adapted to the worker, they create more problems than they solve. So as you can see on the screen, in the interest of time, I won't go into a lot of detail, but also working alongside some of these machines can increase the level of vibration and noise that we are exposed to. So it does create different forms of physical hazards. For smart monitoring systems, sometimes the worker is so reliant on the sensors they work that will detect, for example, a toxic gas. Sometimes in the helmets in mining, they already have the sensors. And if that is, not functioning for a certain reason, the worker no longer relies on his or her own personal judgment to protect themselves and remove themselves from certain dangers. So it does create that reliance. And a lot of it, to actually gather data, to allow it to work properly, we are in a form of invading people's, personal space and privacy to gather so much data about them. Same for virtual reality. I personally think it's one of the most uncomfortable things we even try to do conferences using these virtual reality and extended reality what do you call them? Headsets. I think they're very disorienting. If they're not used for the right purpose, and sometimes face-to-face presence and exchanges are so much more meaningful. And so there are so many negatives to be fully reliant on these means. For algorithmic management, there's a sense of we're no longer, we're missing out on so much that we can understand by only talking to people and not seeing them as data sets. That doesn't tell you the full story about flexibility of working time and other things that they may require or changes they may have. And so they're not set in a model that we've set and we monitor as such. Again, for example, if you're working in offices, which I assume many of you do, our IT services now, for example, you have to enter any question you have in different portals. You're no longer communicating with a person. So it takes even more time to solve issues and to collaborate and work rather than just having that, you call someone, they come into your office, they support.
The whole time, call me instead of texting
me.
me.
Yeah,
Why?
Yes,
please tell them.
So, we think we are, automating our lives and our work, but we're just creating more problems. It would have taken sometimes 2 minutes on a call rather than these back and forth requests and forms and all of that.
Here, thank you, Manal. This is really...
I can leave now. My job's done. No, but really, we need to be assessing what we're accepting and the need for these changes and really what gap they're servicing. And for changing work environments, we've increased access to labor markets to people with care responsibilities, who care for younger people, older people. But at the same time, we're blurring the lines between work and life interface, which creates even more workload and stress, and exposing workers globally to cyberbullying and all kinds of harassment advancement that can occur through the reliance on these technologies. 2 points I also want to mention is, when we talk about, all issues in the world are related: environmental, economic, political. And so when we talk about the generation of some of these technologies, we're talking about the people behind them as well. So today we have data annotators that have work on using some of these very exploitative images sometimes, and have to go through large amounts of data with little support or psychological support. They have to produce as content moderators. Machine learning engineers have also very difficult jobs, as you can see, and big data analysts that are managing these huge data sets and need to be extracting insights and meaningfulness out of them is quite a tough job. Also, to generate these AI-powered systems, we're relying on mining activities, especially for some critical minerals like cobalt, lithium, copper, and most of workers working in dangerous conditions to do this, especially now that there is a huge and rapid demand for the development of some of these technologies. Some of them have child labor situations and abuses and corruption. Also at the level of the factory, to assemble such technologies, workers face very long working hours due to the pressure to produce more in less time, and then those managing the waste, the electronic waste that comes out of this. And so the need to recycle, repurpose, and exposure sometimes to some of the hazardous chemicals that come out of this. Also workers that have little union protection, little knowledge sometimes, or awareness, or access to rights. And so very quickly, at the level of the International Labour Organization, this specialized agency that produces international standards, we do have this overall right today, as of a few years ago, to a safe and healthy working environment, by which 2 conventions, 155, 187, are today fundamental. All countries and member states around the world need to apply the provisions and requirements of these, and they include the need for employers to keep up to date with technologies, to continue to do research, as the good example that you are doing today, focusing your research on some of these issues and raising awareness around them, and creating frameworks at the national level that include certain requirements. So, regulation is not the answer to everything, but sometimes it is necessary as a starting point. It gets conversations like this going, it gets research going, and the rest. Here are some other instruments at the ILO that also support the governance of the use of machinery, of tools, of equipment, of the recognition of some of the occupational exposure and diseases around these, so that people can be compensated, etc. And we are currently, this year, next year, on a discussion at the ILO on promoting decent work in the platform economy. And that is a very heavy discussion between employers, workers, and governments, ministries of labor globally, and the different problems we're facing there. But maybe we may come up with an international standard by next year. The rest of the presentations gives examples that are very clearly laid out in the report, country examples of safety and health strategies that have been adapted to include some of the concerns we face with these changes, as you can see on the screen. Some are about legislation, the right to disconnect, as the hologram this morning was. Yes, it's
Can you slowly be down
okay.
for the interpreters?
For the interpreters, yes.
Yes. And take your time.
Sure.
I know.
To keep time for questions.
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
Okay. I think most people anyway are listening in English. Okay, so in terms of regulation, here are some examples from different countries that target the automation and advanced robotics, and how we can manage and govern these introductions into the workplaces in a way that doesn't harm workers. The concept of the right to disconnect as well, and the teleworking and digital platforms. How do we manage them, and what are the rights of workers that actually work from remote areas? What are the limitations? Working with human resources to apply some of these regulations is very important, and there are plenty of examples. It's very important to mention some of the interesting collective bargaining agreements around the world. Some are in Europe, of course, as you can see on the screen, that, where the regulation is falling behind, sometimes these CBAs really fill the gap and provide some rights for workers in different workplaces, as you can see, concerning the right to disconnect and exchanges with machines and robots. The labor inspectorates has also been advancing by using some of these technologies to register and analyze some of the data they have on their observations and the reports they have to then inform action to be taken for prevention purposes. In addition to the regulations and health strategies, we do have voluntary guidelines that exist globally that provide very clear guidance on how to manage the introduction of automation and robotics into our workplaces, and guidance for the employer to understand the benefits also. So it's not just an added cost, and the continuous need for the human judgment in a lot of the use of some of these technologies. Training programs as well. So the level of action we need to take nationally and at the level of the workplace, it is important that it is guided by global strategies, by national strategies, by regulation, and collective bargaining agreements. And all of these are based from social dialogue that needs to happen to include the person who's undergoing the task, who can best inform us if this is the best way to do this task or not. And this is, I think, before my last slide, it's just to show at the workplace level, when we talk about OSH, we talk about management systems. And so the management system needs to evolve. And it needs to see this, the idea of the hierarchy of how we control hazards by integrating some of these. And sometimes, personal protective equipment was the last resort to protect workers, but today these equipment can integrate sensors and predictors that can actually predict hazards and risks and exposure before they happen. So we have to look at it differently when we're talking about robotics and automation. Here you can see examples in this table. My last slide is just, some key takeaways that across the 5 areas we explored in our research, they bring some positive advancements. It's about how we use them, how we adapt them to the worker, and how regulation follows through and is properly implemented. And it is a conversation we have to enter, and we have to enter with a lot of knowledge and pace, because what I also see is a global competition of businesses to introduce some of these technologies. And so it's a competition, you absolutely cannot live without this technology and that technology, and you need to be including this, whether it makes sense for the particular job design or for the particular work production and process or not. And of course, we need a lot more research and more databases. It was difficult to find input globally, not just from Europe, around some of these issues and how some new regulations are being implemented and accepted or not. So a lot more is found in this report, available with more detail if anyone is interested. Thank you.
Thank you, Manuel. Okay, let's leave the questions for later, and I would like to ask now William Cockburn Salazar to take the floor. He's Executive Director of the European Agency for Safety and Health at Work, EIOSHA, since 1998, where he focused on the areas of research coordination, emerging risks, and is responsible for the first European survey of enterprises on new and emerging risks, the famous SNR. Since 2012 and until September 2021, he was in charge of EIOSHA's Prevention and Research Unit, which develops the occupational safety and health content for the agency. And on October 16 October 2023, William formally took the position of EIOSHA's Executive Director. He's born in the UK. He's trained first as a lawyer and then as an ergonomist. And prior to joining EIOSHA, he worked in academic research investigating company safety culture in the private sector as an ergonomics consultant and research manager for projects for projects in health and safety at work. Yes, I have to read it all because I did that for the previous speaker, so it would not be fair to not introduce you. William, please take the floor.
Thank you, Emmy. It's a real pleasure to be here in person as well. See everybody face to face. It's a nice change. Fantastic also to be collaborating again with Etui. Our collaboration goes back so many years. It's fantastic to have you, Demi, on our advisory group as well. And also that collaboration extends to a lot of you here and with the ILO as well. Part of the mandate of EU OSHA is to monitor the situation and what's happening in terms of health and safety in the workplace. And on this issue, digitalization more broadly, something we've been looking at for over 10 years. We started looking at crowdsourcing. I think that was the term back then. Crowd work, then platform work, and about 7 years ago, we started quite a major research program on digitalization that included AI. I think it's nicely planned that my presentation will be bringing some data from what's happening at the workplace, and it follows on well from the conceptual introduction and then bringing us down more to the practical implications for OSH, and then in my slides I'll explain a little bit of what we're seeing through our surveys. And we've got two main surveys. One is ESSENA, that speaks to employers, to the person who they nominate as responsible for health and safety in the workplace. And our other survey, OSH Pulse, which is a survey of workers themselves. So to start with, we can see already in our ESSENA survey, which has been going on since 2009, but over the last two waves, how the changing world of work is being presented already in these responses from OSH managers. So we can see big increases in remote working, but also I think we can take satisfaction. There's a reaction from employers as well, a substantial increase in the proportion of risk assessments covering home workplaces. We also see increasing migrant workers in the results that we get from our ESSENA survey. And we introduced new questions such as whether digital technologies are covered in risk assessments and whether training is given on that. And those within the square are falling within the area of digitalization work that we were focusing on. We also ask about what technologies are used, and this covers the whole range from personal computers, laptops, tablets, which are almost universal. Only 4% of company respondents saying that they don't use these technologies. But the latest survey in 2024 said we've got over 10% using wearable devices, machine systems to allocate tasks automatically, or time or shifts automatically, or for monitoring workers, or AI monitoring, and a fewer proportion involving advanced robotics. What we have seen also is, whereas in 2019 only 1 in 4 employers was discussing the impact of digital technology on health and safety, that has climbed to now about 1 in 3. We can see that the messages about OSH and digitalization are getting through. I mentioned that we asked workers about their experiences, and there we asked workers whether digital technology is being used for a number of different purposes. And you can see that broadly 1 in 4 say that it is either being used to automatically allocate tasks, shifts, working time, or they have their work automatically rated through automatic systems, star rating systems, smiley face systems, and so on. 1 in 4 again, they're receiving instructions about how to carry out their work through automated digital systems. All their work's being supervised digitally. They're being monitored through digital systems. And in blue below, you can see that the levels are much higher if you're a digital platform worker. We also asked then as a follow-up, well, how does this technology affect your job? And we can see that about 1 in 2 workers reports that digital technology is determining the pace at which they work. 1 in 3 are saying that it results in a sense of isolation, about the same that it is increasing their workload, about 1 in 5 saying it's reducing their discretion in use of skills, about 16% saying they've got reduced autonomy, this reduced decision latitude, and 1 in 10 are even saying that it's making their job tasks seem trivial or useless. So really quite important perceptions from the use of digital technology. And this technology then, of course, has effects that are generally psychosocial. Now, these are the results across all of our respondents. They're not limited to those saying that they're using digital technology. But as we heard from Giulio earlier, psychosocial risks are reaching very high levels. Full 44% are saying that they're exposed at work to severe time pressure or overload. 1 in 3 are saying that they've got a lack of reward for the work that they do. Poor communication and poor communication and cooperation in the organization. About 1 in 5 saying a lack of autonomy. 16%, which I think is quite high for experiencing violence or verbal abuse from customers, patients, or pupils, and nearly 1 in 10 reporting harassment or bullying. So although not all of those are directly related to digitalization particularly strongly, we can see that some of them certainly are. And we explored this in our research. So we compared the prevalence in the reports from workers on time pressure, job insecurity, poor communication, and long or irregular working hours, and compared those where the technology was present and where it was not present. So I apologize for a rather busy slide, but the takeaway is that for each of those technologies on the left, you've got whether the technology is present or not present, and the lower line is generally quite a bit longer. So where the technology is present, you can see that these different psychosocial risks that we identified are higher. So I think that's interesting that it came through so clearly in the data from the survey, and it's something that we're following up in our more qualitative research. Going back more generally to the overall results, and we asked about health outcomes. And we saw really quite high reports, 37% reporting overall fatigue, similar levels for headaches and eye strain, 30% stress, depression, or anxiety, and nearly as much for musculoskeletal complaints, and then lower levels for other risks, for other outcomes, sorry. And of course, fatigue, headaches, eye strain, stress, depression, anxiety, all related to exposure to psychosocial risks, which, as we saw in the previous slide, also made more likely when you've got digital technologies prevalent in the workplace. Not directly associated to this, but it's in the slide anyway, is the importance of stigma for dealing with these issues. It's still incredibly difficult to talk about mental health issues in the workplace. The averages here for the EU are about half of the workers saying that they would consider talking about mental health having a negative impact on their career, even more saying that they wouldn't feel comfortable. What I like to point out here is that the differences for these questions are enormous across the EU countries that we covered. I think that gives hope because it means that in some member states, there are cultures, measures that have been successful in breaking down the stigma. And that means that we can then hopefully transfer practices and learn from each other's experiences. I've got a number of slides that I won't go into now because I think Manal covered them very well. We also carried out research on similar topics, and I'd summarized here some of the risks and opportunities around artificial intelligence in worker management, and then also on the use of automation and advanced robotics. Again, some of the risks and opportunities and the use of smart digital systems. But I think it would just be repeating to go through those again. So I'll bring my presentation to an end and open the floor or hand the floor back to you, Demi, for questions.
Now we are, thank you very much, the three of you. We are right on time for the break, but I suggest we take some questions from the audience because all the presentations you gave were very, very interesting. So with risking a difficult discussion with my research director, why did you let them speak so long? I opened the floor for questions. And if you don't have questions, I do have. So, anyone? Yes, please. Yes.
Hello, my name is Hello, my name is Philip and I represent Polish trade union working in business process outsourcing. We service a big tech American platform and we're content moderators, you know, and this platform use algorithms to help us review the content, but we are still exposed to egregious and highly sensitive content on daily basis. And they also implement this surveillance. We're kind of locked in our production area without phones, without papers. And when we leave this area, we should apply our badges. So because of the secrecy of this job, we're kind of deprived. And a lot of mental health problems actually arise. And the question, I know that you focus mostly on AI problems, but in our case, could we have your support with surveys? Because we have very big database of workers, and we would like to have some research fellow support to formulate the survey. I can perform this survey and you also can use this data, and we could also use this data to negotiate better health insurance coverage, because they do not provide mental health insurance. You know, they just cutting costs, and we do not have access to psychiatrist care. We watch pedophilia, we watch terrorism, we watch abuse, you know, of human rights and hate speech, and we do not have access to mental health. Yes, so I just want to attract attention to this problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Bart? I think that Bart wants to respond to this question.
I absolutely don't want to respond to a question. William, I was being an employer myself, quite shocked, I have to say, by the mental health stigma that you put up there. So nearly 50% of workers in the EU are afraid to report mental health issues to their employer. So you mentioned a great deal of variation within the EU. I would be curious to know a little bit more about that, but also I'm curious, is this stigma confirmed by the reality, in the sense that do people suffer consequences if they come forward with mental health issues in the workplace? I would be curious about that too. Thank you.
Thank you, Bart. Other questions? So, who wants to take the first question, or do you all want to reflect on the first question? I think it was a clear question. I don't know if you
I think it's
have a way to relate to that. Yes.
Really important to draw attention to this issue. I mentioned our crowdsourcing article over 10 years ago, and we did highlight already the content moderation as a particular occupation exposed to really important psychological risks. We can talk later about a potential research project, but I take your offer. That's very interesting. And yeah, when it comes to stigma, we did not ask actually whether workers had suffered, had raised this and actually experienced a negative reaction. It was more the perception about whether they could do this. I'm happy to share the cross-country comparisons. It's really quite dramatic. And I think from our surveys, some of those cross-country comparisons are the most interesting, because they raise the hypothesis that there must be something that's happening differently in these countries that can be then shared and hopefully bring up the level in those where it's further behind.
Anna, do you want to?
There's nothing really to answer the first question. Thanks for sharing it. It's very important to hear from the mouth of the people exposed, because otherwise people think we're making things up. So it's important that you voice your concern and you give that example. And I hope through the EU, OSHA or other systems, you can have a proper survey with data, because data is what advocates for support and protection and change. At the international level, we're here to support that. We recognize it. And the international standards do apply to content moderators. It's a question of how the international standards then are translated into national legislation, then into actual policy implementation at these various workplaces. So.
And Mehdi, do you have a reaction to the first question that was?
Now, maybe a question: how would you think if your task becomes automated? Do you think it's a good thing to do because of these psychological effects?
What do you think? Because she's my colleague.
Okay, we think that this work should be automated, but there are lots of problems with this automatization. For example, algorithm gives monetization for terrorism, and it's automatic issue. And still nowadays, nothing have done to overcome it. So it's a problem as for now.
Yes, and in one first report, when it came to limitations of AI, so AI model is biased, and in many cases, when it comes to crucial content moderations, it lacks this emotional intelligence and to really determine if there is violation of law. So we see a lot of these edge cases related to Israel-Gaza conflict, for example, Russian-Ukraine war. When you need human brain to understand is really misinformation present or not present. So it cannot be automated fully now, because it will lead to actually problems with the internet propaganda, especially Russian propaganda. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. I think within the interest of time, we can close this session, which was extremely interesting and informative, and go for a break, take a break for a coffee, and we will be back. Let me see. 3:15, which is now? No, not yet. Okay. So yes, and take this time, take this opportunity to go to the 2 rooms which are outside this conference room to play and outplay the digital gadgets we have prepared for you. Thank you very much.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm so loud. I hope you all had some chance to go through some of the side activities, and you will have another chance at the other coffee break and also tomorrow. And right now we're at the session called AI and Physical Work. And my name is Menekşe Beram. I'm a senior researcher at E2I. And I'm also a research ergonomist. My research area is occupational injury prevention. I'm really happy to chair this session. And our first speaker is Sasha Wisniewski. He is the head of Unit of Human Factors and Ergonomics at Federal Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. As you might find out at the registration, we have amazing booklets with the speaker's bio. I'm not going to go into detail, but please find their bios here because we have amazing speakers today and tomorrow. And then Sasha is going to talk about automation of tasks, OSH, impacts of advanced robotics. The stage is yours, Sasha.
Okay. Yeah, Menekşe, thank you very much for the kind introduction. Thank you also to Dimitras for the kind invitation by E2I today to speak here. I'm very much honored to give a contribution in the field. It's a little difficult after we've seen that dystopic movie now to find a more positive maybe view on artificial intelligence and automation and robotics. I'll give my very best to talk a little bit about the topic of robotics, advanced robotics, AI-based robotics. Maybe we have a little time later for the discussion because it's not such an easy topic on the definition. What is now an AI-based robot, safety-wise, and aspects of that. And I brought to you some slides, not too much. I learned we want to have a lot of discussion, so I'm planning to speak just 5 to 10 minutes to keep it short. We can discuss, share ideas, exchange ideas. And I brought to you basically these 4 slides. I want to speak about why tasks matter. I want to give you a brief overview about the impact of AI-based systems and advanced robotics on OSH from 11 case studies that we've been doing together with, I see over there, with Phoebe Moore, with Milieu for EU OSHA, for the campaign that was just recently closed down on digitalization. And we did that work. I'm going to present some of that. And also briefly, what did we learn from these case studies? I will make it not too extensive because basically I can say we found proof for what you have been told in the first panel, which is not surprising, but still it's proof from 11 companies from the last 2 to 3 years. And briefly, maybe give you an outlook on humanoids. I don't know if you have seen the videos out there, so just some thoughts on we have AI-based systems and advanced robotics today. Tomorrow we might have humanoids, and the question is, what do we do then? Any new challenges, any new chances? I hope you can see it, but you can also find that in the report. I think the slides will be shared afterwards. I just brought that slide. I'm not going through all of that, but this is basically the answer to why the human factors engineers always gives you the answer, it depends. So if you're an employer and say, well, I want to do this and this and this, and what happens? And then you always get the answer, well, it depends, which is sometimes frustrating. But it's because it's complex, it's complicated. If we talk about digitalization, we have to take a look, what kind of task do we have? Do I have a physical task and a robot? Do I have a cognitive task at a computer? Am I working physically? Am I working cognitively? Am I working with objects? Am I working with persons? Or am I working with information? Is it a routine task or is it a non-routine task? Is it assistance, or as we heard earlier, augmenting? Or is it substitution, for example, as humanoids are or will be? And then finally, do we have physical or psychosocial or organizational OSH impacts? And that is basically the catalog why the human factors engineer always tells you it depends. If you answer him these questions, then you get the answer. And then he will say, well, these are possible impacts. Again, it's also a very small slide. But this is, as I said, basically the proof of what Manal and William and also Professor Dastani have shown you before, because you see most of the concepts he mentioned on his slides also here. We found that in 11 companies. We spoke there to the employer, to an employee representative, to the safety engineer, to the data privacy officer, and you see you have, and that's maybe the making it a little positive from what we've seen in the movie. You don't only see the blue aspects, which are risks here. For example, let's just take one out. If it's not really properly done, you have a psychosocial risk of, for example, distrust in the system. If it's not properly implemented, if you don't properly talk to the people during the implementation process. But you can also see yellow, and yellow here are chances. And here you see these phrases that we always see in the field of job transformation by digitalization. For example, upskilling, reskilling, we get maybe more task variety, we earn more, or we gain more job control. Again, depending how you implement this kind of technology. It's a lot of, well, knowledge. You find that in the case study report. I think the report by EU OSHA has like 50 pages, so I'm not going to summarize that. But if you are now interested in, and if you still don't want to read the 50 pages, but you still want to do some kind of risk assessment, also what we were able to do as Bauer, and specifically Patricia, she's also here today, so if you have questions in the break, she can answer, give you all the details. We did an EURA tool. The EURA tools are the online interactive risk assessment tools by EU OSHA that you can use. And we did that for the automation of tasks, for AI-based systems, for cognitive work, and for robotics. So if you click there, you find all the important aspects, and basically everything you see here summarized within this tool. Briefly, the lessons learned. So if we go even to a higher level, I know that what I'm presenting here is more or less a no-brainer, but still, this is what we found in the case studies. If you implement advanced robotics or AI-based systems, it is always good to have early involvement of employees and provision of training. Basically what Dimitra said during her opening remarks, worker involvement, worker participation, it works. It worked 30 years ago. It still works today, and I'm very confident it will still work in 20 years and in 50 years. Also very important to have clear and direct communication during the change management process, because the employees, they know their work, they know what changes. So be transparent, be honest, be clear. Even if sometimes you have some risks, or if you have maybe one person less in that team doing the job, still, you have to have clear and direct communication, because people find out what's going on, because they do the work on a daily basis. Of course, as always, consider health and safety aspects from the beginning. It's always bad if you design a machine, the worker wants to enter the machine and it doesn't fit, for example, anthropometrically, or the biomechanics, that doesn't work. It's always good to consider that from the beginning. That is valid for robotics, AI-based systems, but also for any kind of machinery or furniture in the work environment. So this is also, I have to say that, it's also not new. The third point is also not new. I'm sorry, I'm just bringing old stuff here, but it's still valid. The consistent application of interaction design principles in system development. We have a very good ISO standard, which is 9241, and I think then it's 210, that is the substandard. And there we have all the design principles in there. I think this standard exists for 30 years or 40 years. You can still apply that to AI-based systems, to robotics. If you use that, or if you don't know it, or maybe your boss doesn't know it, or your designer doesn't know it, please show it to him. Very important. And for the final slide, that I don't show you only old stuff. I thought I'd bring you some new stuff. That's why I briefly want to talk about humanoids. Yeah, so he's kind of cute. That's the one you can currently buy. So, and it's not threatening. So that's why I just stood next to it. The problem is, now it's not a problem. He has now a brother, and his brother is 180. I'm still 193, so I still have an advantage, but still here, 70 kilograms, I think. So this evolved, and that was in this year in August. So we will see these systems out there. And here I just want to put attention, and that is also to something that is also what Dimitra said in the beginning. We have to use the technology to support us. And here what we did there in one publication, we said we did some kind of requirement analysis for humanoids, because what we can say is humanoids is a substitution, because they are designed that they can operate in environments that are done for a human being. That doesn't have to be always bad, because we also learned if you have physically demanding tasks, you can take humans away from dangerous tasks. That's a good thing. And also we are lacking of people in our industries, so also there might be a chance. But we have to be careful that I'm an engineer, that we don't solve easy problems. Because having a humanoid sitting here and pressing the button, smiling at you, talking with a large language model, he can do today. But I also can do that, and I like that. What I don't like is, for example, harmful positions. I don't want to crawl under the table to connect wires or do stuff like that. Everything basically where we have these different, for example, the key indicator methods from Germany, where you can mark physical tasks and say, this is a red task because you have to bend, you have to squeeze, you have to lift a lot. This is the task that the humanoid is supposed to be. I know for your engineers won't like that, because that's a difficult task to design. It's easier to make him sit and present. That's why I can also do the task. And I'm not, well, and that is what Dimitri said at the beginning. We need to avoid delegation of residual task to the human, and the humanoids take over. So that was basically my last message. This is an interesting technology. It's an important technology, but we have to be careful. Same with AI or everything else. Again, now this is again an evergreen message I have for you. I'm sorry. We have to be careful not to give the good tasks to machine and make the easy tasks solved by the machine, and we do the residual task. And with that being said, I hope I stick to the time more or less. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you so much, Sasha. We're going to wait for the older presenters to finish their presentations for the Q&A session. I hope you're writing down your questions for the discussion. Our next speaker is Regina Megerlein. She's the head of global environment, health and safety for ZF LifeTech. She couldn't be here in person, unfortunately, but she's joining us online.
Okay, yeah, and here I am. I hope you can see me and you can hear me okay.
Yes.
Perfect. So I'm now going to share my screen. Go. Share. So I hope you can see, and I move you the conference to the other screen so I'm able to share. Yeah, I think you noticed from my voice why I couldn't join you. I thought it wasn't a good idea to spread my sneezing and coughing to everybody else on the conference. I would have loved to see people in person, because the side discussions at the conferences are always very, very valuable. But at least thanks to digitalization, I can be with you today and at least do my presentation and give you a few insights what we are going to do, or what we are actually already doing in our company related to the use of AI solutions. And there are quite a few. I've just used some in the presentation for you. We have many more applications. And also just making a bit reference to the intro video. When I was looking at this, I thought, oh, that must be a vision from many, many years back. And fortunately, this didn't come true. But the world today in industry looks much different. At least I can speak for our facilities. But yeah, let me start. Just briefly about our company. Our company is a multinational company. For us, safety is our business, so safety is extremely important. We save lives with our technology, so we produce airbags, seat belts, and steering wheels. We have roughly 36 1,000 employees around the globe, 51 locations and 22 countries. So you can see all numbers on the screen. So I don't think I have to go through all these details, but at least you've got an idea who we are. And this is roughly our presence around the globe. So still a lot in Europe, and that will also remain like this. But we are also present, obviously, in other countries around the globe. And we actually, our programs apply globally, and so do our standards. Let me just explain a little bit how our overall approach works towards safety. So for us, there are 3 key areas where we need to focus on if we want to reach an excellent level of safety. And one thing is what we call the continuous improvement. That's having a management system in place, having defined standards, and also getting the conditions right, the working conditions for the people. But if you would only focus on this, you can reach a certain level of safety, and then you got stuck. Therefore, we also need to look into people, right? And this is how we defined our safety program this way. We need to make sure that our employees are keeping involved. As Sebastian already said, that's one of the key factors for a successful safety program. So we have defined employee involvement programs, so employees understand how they can influence their own safety and the safety of their colleagues, and also to listen to them, which is also an extremely important factor for us. And then what is also important, and without this nothing really goes through, this is our leaders in the company. So we have a safety leadership program to educate our leaders how they can apply their leadership for improving safety, and that they have a clear understanding on how their decisions impact safety for our employees. So that's our key areas. And now let me go into some solutions that I had put together for you. The first one I wanted to show is about warehouse safety. So we had a huge campaign in the company to improve our segregation between transport vehicles, mainly forklifts, and employees. But, excuse me, but even after making a lot of improvements, physical improvements, forklift reduction, we have still places where it is very difficult to achieve further segregation, and this is one example. And excuse me, we actually use techniques to make this safer. I showed you the video now, how it works. So this is the gate that is using camera to detect forklift coming from the right side here on the photo. And if the camera detects the forklift, the gate would give a signal and turn into red and warn the pedestrian and ask the pedestrian to stop. So with this, the risk of pedestrian and forklift collision is definitely further reduced. So that's one solution, and I've got more for you. So this one is also a nice solution that we have developed, which is about making a robot area secure. So in the first step, we were looking at a task that had a lot of physical load for the people. So all our airbags need to go through a metal detector because we cannot have any metal pieces in our bags. And the boxes have been lifted always manually and then went through the detector. So a lot of physical load, as I said, for the employees. So we were thinking about automizing this. And this is what we did. So we set up a robot station, now moving around the boxes. So we had significantly reduced the load for the people. But then we obviously introduced the mechanical risk inside the robot station. And I mean, it has been guarded properly, and we've developed lockout tagout procedures. People have been trained, so that's all set. But we still have the humans around, don't we? And humans fail. Humans do sometimes funny things in inverted commas. So we thought, well, let's think about how we can add additional safety, so not replacing any guarding, but additional safety to keep our people safe. And what we've done is we added AI cameras that would detect a person inside the robot cell and then stop the entire system. So there's no way to operate a robot as long as there is a person inside the dangerous zone. So the next solution I'm going to show you is a pilot solution. It's about PPE use, obviously being applied only in a case where process optimization would not allow the elimination of the residual risk, and where we would need to have PPE. And this is an example here. There's one station, an assembly station, where a feather could jump out and then hit the employee. And currently we haven't found the final solution to keep the spring inside. So employees need to use safety glasses as long as we haven't got a solution in place. And we all know people sometimes forget to wear their PPE, and so we wanted to support our employees, making sure they wear their safety glasses and cannot be hurt if something goes wrong with the feather. So we've installed cameras. The cameras are able to detect if the person's wearing safety glasses or not. And they can even, or the camera can even distinguish between the safety glasses and ordinary optical glasses. So if they don't wear the safety glasses, the machine wouldn't stop. So obviously we don't keep any footage, and there's no records kept at all. It's just interlocked or connected with the machine start up, and nothing else. So that's, as I said, it's a pilot, so potential future application as well for us. The other thing is about, again, about ergonomics. So where we use a system, or we use an application where we can easily identify and quickly identify ergonomics risks. We do a lot of ergonomics risk assessments because we have still a lot of assembly. We have other operations where we would find potentially ergonomics risks, and we use this tool to assess those risks. So you just do a short video, then you upload it into the system, and the system calculates for you the risk score, and you see how this would then finally look like. In terms of scoring, and you see on the right hand, after making improvements, which is we've installed and provided a lifter for the box lifting, you see then how this becomes green, and you can also see the confirmation in the video. And what's also maybe important to mention, so the video doesn't really capture the person, so it does put it into this way, so we would not see which person has been filmed, and we would ask anyway for agreement before we do anything of this filming with people. So let me go then to the next one. So also what we are doing is we use AI agents and assistants to support the organization in terms of EHS, making information quickly available, help the people to understand how they can use it to analyze data, to generate documents, to summarize documents. So we keep showing this, we keep training them on how to use it, because we need to make our people We need to get our people away from computers, sitting there analyzing data or entering data, and we want them to be on the shop floor and make improvements. And this is how we approach the whole thing, and how we develop our AI agents, that we feed them with internal information where they can quickly find out what about a specific requirement related to a certain topic. How is that in our company? So they just type that question in and they get an answer. So that makes them really much quicker for a lot of things. We have also something specifically developed, and this is what I'm sharing now on the next slide. A bit more details just to also support our leaders, which we want to talk about safety. We have actually generated this safety talks generator, feed it with a lot of topics related to safety. So if they want to do a safety talk and they are not sure what to talk about, or they don't feel comfortable talking freely, they can just go to our safety talks generator, put the topic in, or even ask for suggestions and then pick one. And then the safety talks generator would give them their talking points. They can use it from the mobile, they can print it out. So it's very easily to use for them. So, and to summarize the whole thing a little bit, so what we are trying to do is we explore how we can use new technology and AI to make safety better, to help us predicting hazards and also prevent accidents. I think we have also seen this in Sebastian's presentation, that if we use the systems intelligently and technology intelligently, it can help us a lot reduce risks and accidents. And yeah, if we are able to be faster in detecting unsafe conditions and risks, or if we are able to use technology, if it's robots, if it's a cobot, to take over hazardous tasks, I think that's the best we can do with these techniques, while we obviously need to always look into how we do it. There's no doubt on this. And we can also use new technology to engage with our organization, because this is also what we want to do. We want to engage them for safety. So we would need to sell safety in a positive and innovative way, and that's also what we are trying to do. So we have many more applications. I could show you also applications for cobots, and applications for other use of AI cameras. But yeah, with this, I think I would want to finish off my presentation. And thank you very much for giving me opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you so much, Regina, for your presentation. I hope you can stay longer for the Q&A session.
Yes, of
We're
course.
going to move on to our next speaker, Colin Chambers. He is a senior engineer at Science Division, Health and Safety Executive, and he's going to talk about AI in workplace safety, balancing benefits and risks.
So whilst I'm waiting for that, hello, I'm Colin Chambers. I work at HSE's Science Division, and we're just starting on this road to learning about what people do with AI and how that impacts on us in supporting our regulatory colleagues, in helping them to understand the risks, and also, though, being mindful of our government's requirement to support innovation. And so we have to walk this double-edged sword. So I'm going to talk about that. First of all, I'd like to thank Dimitri for inviting me here. I'm very pleased to be here, and it's very nice of you to ask me. Okay, so we conducted a study, an anonymous survey, and we asked people all about what they used AI for. We asked a lot of questions on the vain hope that we'd get a lot of technical answers, and we didn't, but still. But we got a lot of useful data. And we asked people what they did in their companies and what their involvement was, so that we could just gain some idea about what was perception and what was accurate depiction of what they did. And so I'm just going to walk through some of this. So we asked them what they thought the risks were, what they thought the benefits were, what controls they implemented. So everything that I'm going to talk about here is what was fed back to us. And we asked them anonymously, and I think that was a useful thing, because we got lots of truthful answers, like, my boss doesn't know I use AI, but I use it to do this, that and the other. Okay, so we managed, after weeding out responses that said AI is evil, don't use it, and weeding out other responses that were a wish list rather than what the people actually worked with, we ended up with 247 AI use cases, and this was distributed across 14 industrial sectors. I asked our bosses in HSE, how many sectors do we cover? None of them could tell me. So that's an interesting thing in itself. What we did identify, that there were main areas where a lot of the responses were centered around. That's safety management, equipment and plant control, maintenance, and occupational monitoring. So we're going to talk about some examples from those. So the first one, and they're sort of there in order of prevalence to a degree. A lot of people talked about using drones for different aspects of their work. But the one that was of particular interest is where drones were used for maintenance purposes. And we were particularly interested in those examples where drones had cameras. So AI was twofold. It helped the drone position itself into useful places, and then it helped analyze the camera feed to identify faults. And areas that were reported to her were offshore wind farms, wind turbines, and pipeline bridges over rivers, over different parts of manufacturing and chemical plants and so on. Places that were difficult to get to and would normally require rope work or something like that. So they told us that the benefits that they saw were that this minimized requirement for rope access. It enabled them to perform more frequent assessments, because it wasn't a big job to make sure that they could get everything in place to then allow somebody to do this work. Excuse me. And overall, they thought it provided more frequent and better and more predictable, not predictable, more reliable analyses of the equipment that they were looking at. We asked them about the risks. They were concerned about data integrity. First of all, if you're analysing and identifying faults, how do you analyse faults that don't appear within your training set? So there was a concern that if data was outside the training set, the AI would just make the nearest fit, and the nearest fit might not be good enough. So that was a particular concern. And there was a lot of concern about data being corrupted, either when it's transmitted or otherwise, and about the storing of data, and potentially the access to that data was a concern. They were bothered about the drone losing signal, and then they didn't always elaborate on why this was an issue to them. So to some extent we guessed. They had lots of faults. They then thought that if there was an over-reliance on the use of drones, then the actual inspectors who used to do that work would lose competence. So you'd have a de-skilling issue. And given that part of what they said when we asked them what assurance measures they used for the AI system, that the results were verified by specialists, and one or two said, but we're concerned about how skilled these specialists will be over time. So they were concerned about an ever decreasing circles in terms of the integrity of the results. Okay, another example. There were lots of examples in transport industry, but we just took this one down where an AI system basically would monitor for each vehicle its maintenance history, and would also have some sensor input from key components, critical components like wheel bearings. And they'd combine these two and then predict early failures. And when something was red flagged, then that would be dealt with. And the idea is that these could be identified before the next scheduled service. So the risk they thought again was poor data and lack of understanding or dealing with failure modes outside those that normally occurred within the training data, which was taken from the maintenance records. And if anybody's seen maintenance records or industrial plant, shall we say, they're not always well written, and everybody writes a record differently, and everybody describes the same thing with 20 or 30 different words or phrases. So there was a concern that AI wouldn't properly understand all the situations because the data is incomplete. So we asked, how do you assure this? And they said, well, you know, we cross-check this, we check it against inspection schedules, and so they sampled the inspection schedules. They manually predict when they might have had to dealt with something. They look at the sensor logs, and they try and then effectively collaborate what the AI is telling them. And what they said was, or they told us, is that the models were continuously updated with new data. Oh, that's better doing it underneath. The second one, and this one worried me a lot, more in the way it was worded than anything, is that we saw that there was a tendency for a lot of companies to say that they were using it to generate HAZOP studies. I work mostly from a chemical process industries background, so those of you not familiar, hazard studies are detailed studies of what happens if you get more or less pressure, more or less temperature, and so on. And they were using those to generate the HAZOP forms, to generate initial question sets, and then they're using these within an HAZOP study as prompts. Well, how do you deal with errors of omission? That was the biggest concern, really. If you put too much in, you can take some out. If you don't put enough in, you can't do anything about it. And then the other problem was the number of people said, oh, my boss doesn't know I do it, but I write risk assessments using ChatGPT because I'm under a lot of pressure to get the work done. And I assess risk assessments, and it gave me nightmares in that it's okay, I think, for AI to help you with risk assessments if you've already generated it yourself and you're just using AI to maybe jog your memory about something you've missed. But like any checklist situation, if somebody gives you a list of things, you're not going to add to it because you think it's complete. And so, again, these risk assessments, they would put into the assessment plant data, previous HAZOPs, And I think there are a lot of things that they didn't tell us. I mean, the actual time to turn a HAZOP into a machine-readable document is quite significant. And so how their bosses didn't know they were doing this is perhaps, maybe they weren't being 100% honest in some cases. They told us that the benefits were that it speeded up the paperwork and it highlighted hazards that they'd not identified it. They seem to be at great pains to tell us how they check this against their history afterwards and so on. But being a cynic and working for a regulator, I sort of felt that they were just covering themselves just in case. So they identify the risks that large language models can produce convincing but flawed outputs. SCAF could lose skills in preparing and reviewing safety documents, and that staff over time would just accept the outcome as it is. My opinion is that over time is actually a very short period of time. So we said, how do you assure against this? And they said, well, you know, we have engineers and experts review all the AI generated outcomes and procedures and so on. But then that conflicted with the, I use this, but my boss doesn't know. If that's the case, who then is checking it? Okay, so given that I'm running out of time as usual, and there are more of these in the presentation for you, I'll just go, no, I'll just talk about this one. This one was cases where they told us that AI and computer vision was used to see, a bit like the example from the previous speaker, whether people were using the correct PPE. And they said this was done in real time, and this allowed literally somebody to go out and say, if you're working in this area, you need to wear that. People were concerned about blind spots, about how lighting affected what the camera could see, about the issue of being false positives and false negatives due to environmental factors, which will impact on any camera-based system. And for the insurance, they basically all told us in unison, supervisors conduct spot checks and random footage reviews. So I'll go straight to that. So basically then, from what we were told by these 247 groups of people, and they all had varying levels. Some were users of AI, some were developers, and some were people who, senior engineers in company who were implementing these systems. And basically then, the main benefits were that it took people out of hazardous situations. It helped improve productivity. It helped bring a certain amount of consistency to a degree in terms of analytic outputs, and that based on what we were told, if people, the fact that people worked with this and that there was oversight, and human in the loop was the most commonly cited oversight measure, then the benefits and risks the benefits are usable. In terms of risk, algorithmic failures, again, training set issues with data and so on, were commonly mentioned, de-skilling. Just about everybody was concerned about data, regardless of how they use this. So I think even people who might not understand the intricacies or problems with data knew that data was a big problem. And in a way, I think that's quite a good thing. There was concern about stress caused by algorithmic management, and whether an algorithm simply manages efficiency and doesn't allow for nuances and human failures. Well, not failures, that's a wrong word, but sort of human behavior traits, yes. It was a very useful research program for us to do, because it actually gave us a picture, a snapshot. It's not a lot of people, 247, but it's a snapshot. And it gave us an idea of what was happening. Frightened us a bit with risk assessment, but everything else we sort of knew and expected. So the way forward as an organisation, we're aware that it's important to work with existing frameworks because people have put a lot of time and effort into them, and therefore they're likely to be useful. And adapting those is a useful way to go forward. My boss tried to get me to remove that one, but I didn't. Regulatory frameworks should evolve alongside technical change. We all know there's a significant lag. And a lot of that is not the fault of the regulator. It's just as soon as people see something works, then the uptake is far quicker than regulation can aim to catch up with after. So HSE is using this information to help improve the way we work or aim to work in regulating the use of AI. And that we know that we need continued engagement with all stakeholders at all levels to help boost our knowledge and to help us to be better regulators of the application of AI. Okay, that's it.
Thank you so much. Okay, I want to open to the floor for a Q&A session. Is anyone have questions? We have one here, Dominic. And that next gentleman.
Hello, thank you so much for the great presentation. I'm Sean. I'm the Vice President of Scheffler Group for Safety, Health, Environment, Energy, and Sustainability. So basically, it's a company similar to ZF in Germany, a global company with 120,000 employees around the world. So I have two questions, if I'm allowed it. The first question is about the humanoid. So we have been invested a lot and also supply a lot, and also we'll deploy a lot of humanoids, thousands of them in the next years in our workplaces. Do we have any collaborated or joint forced humanoid risk assessment or the benefits, risks, and everything in this field? Do we have it? So that is my first question. The second question is actually to Regina, because we face similar challenges that we also want to roll out a lot of things that you presented, but sometimes we face the issue of data protection. And our work council says that, oh, we have a concern here, we have a concern that, we just prefer to not have it. For example, the PPE, that we want to check if the colleagues are wearing the correct PPE in the workplace. But they said, no, this is violating of our data protection and privacy. And also this is evaluating our performance or something. So they have concerns. So I'm wondering that what is your experience of convincing our work council colleagues to buy in and to support us to do so? For sure, that actually I or my team, globally, we have about 500 EHS professionals. We don't really have any interest of collecting the private information of our colleagues. We want to really drive safety. But the trust or this support from the work council is always somehow a challenge for us. So the two questions from me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sasha, would you like to go first for the humanoids?
That was a tough question. To my feeling, the humanoids are still not that mature. I mean, obviously, you have in your company, you have a good connection to humanoids manufacturers, so you can try and test. But from my experience, science and the labs in the world don't have so much access to these kind of systems, especially when it's about humanoids encountering humans. Because the other things are just technological problems. It's about sensing, gripping. If there's no human in there, it's just a robot on two legs. So the problem is currently these systems, I think they are now getting so mature that they can stable walk and do some kind of interaction. So I would say currently there's not so much knowledge out there because there are not so many mature systems that you can do tests with. I don't know if that completely answers your question, but that is my feeling. And maybe one last sentence. I know there's an IEEE group on standards for humanoids. They're doing a lot of work there because there is one thing that we will face in this area. Because these machines, if you have them like 50, 60, 70 kilograms, and they can immediately collapse. So that will be something for the upcoming risk assessment. So I'm currently not sure if we really see these systems close to humans, because the problem is how do you adapt to this, or how do you mitigate the risk of a humanoid with 70 kilograms suddenly collapsing due to an energy shortcut or something. So that is one of the biggest challenges next to interaction questions.
I think also, just quickly with that, so in terms of in industry, there are robot standards that deal with collaborative applications for robot, and they use things like force limiting, speed, and the amount of payload limiting. And so these humanoids and their stability has the potential to immediately conflict on that. So would we use humanoids in the industrial workplace at the moment? Probably wouldn't get past the standards. The relevant ISO 20218, I think, yeah.
Regina, would you like to answer the second question?
Yes, sure. Yeah, it's obviously a challenge with those kind of applications to make sure we don't violate data protection. But yeah, I mean, we have a data protection officer that would look into this. The system designers have had training in data protection. What would they need to consider when designing systems like this? And we obviously get the people involved at the site before we implement this. So this PPE detection thing is a pilot yet. We are testing this, and once it has been really thoroughly tested, then we can see what the next steps would be. I'm very careful with these kind of applications for bigger areas, where you would, for example, say you can only enter the warehouse with the high visibility clothing. So I would be very careful with that. I'm not a big friend of those applications, and we also need to be always a bit careful to not generate any overconfidence to people. So I want people to still keep thinking and not taking the responsibility away from them. And those kind of solutions with the PPE detection, for me, this is interim solutions we would look into, and nothing where you say that's the thing forever. And we do this all the time, but we would also look into very, very specific use cases, because as you said, there is always some concern of data protection, and the only thing is no footage kept and no records of the application, so you can't use any data, which is anyway not the intention, but I understand the concerns. So that's that. I had to give you a little bit of a diplomatic answer, I'm sorry, but happy to discuss this further. Unfortunately, I can't be present, so we can't even speak in the coffee break now, because it's definitely an interesting topic.
Maybe also one sentence to that, because I think that's really a very interesting topic. I mean, are we using AI for compliance with PPE? And I think, as Regina also said, it's a double-sided sword. And I would always say, of course, because on the one hand, we say it's about safety. So who will say not to do that because it's safety? On the other hand, if we put a camera someplace, people feel surveyed. Whatever you do with the data, they feel surveyed. So I would always say, be careful, or take a look. What is the risk? How high is the risk? Because it's very invasive. And the second point I would also put into this discussion is it's about safety culture. So not to make the mistake of trying to externalize safety culture because now I have the AI. I don't have to care because the manager has to care. He has to take a look. He has to speak to his people. He has to have a safety culture, and we cannot or shouldn't do the I would say a mistake to always to delegate that to an algorithm because the algorithm detects I don't have to care anymore. So I would say it's a tool, but you have to be careful where to put it. But basically, as Regine said, so.
Yeah, thanks.
I know it's time for a coffee break, but this is really valuable discussion. That's why we have 2 more questions on the stage, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Eco Waves movement, you know, we are building the future in 3 principles: direct democracy with citizens' assemblies, science and societies of knowledge, and arts and ecology. I'm coming from a video gaming conference where I told that we cannot live without the robots anymore. And robots means artificial intelligence and machines. This is one. It's not a different thing. So we can't go away from the robotic era because Aristotle spoke 2,500 years ago about slavery and told that when the automaton will be directed by the architect and it will going to practice the speech of the architect, then the ending of slavery for the humans will happen. So yet we are in a primitive level of the robotic era. We are in the 1st or 2nd generation. The Chinese and the Americans, they are guiding the whole stuff. Chinese, they are unstoppable right now. They have created factories where only robots are working without lights in the darkness so that they have economy. And they are producing goods. We have humanoids. I have here a video at my profile where the citizens who follow the Eco Waves movement see it. Now they are entering in the energy factories and they put humanoid robots to control with special machinery the energy values of the machines. So that's why the marketing they have, it's very good one. And we, the Europeans, as you very well spoken, we have to close our borders and discuss in democratic way what we shall do, especially the workers. Because the working way of thinking of the past, Marxist, capitalism, whatever you call it, has ended. We have the slaves of the future, which are the robots, and we have to deal with them. What are we going to do? Who is going to control the robots? So my question is, can you assist us so that the Asimov laws to come in the front lines and the safety and security will be augmented inside the coding with the Asimov, which we, the Europeans, invented in the 30s and 40s? Thank you very much.
Thank you. You want to build on the question? Please, Bart.
Thanks very much. Yes, I'm still Bart, the real Bart. I left my avatar in the other room. So I guess several of us have received a pop-up from Time magazine. The architects of artificial intelligence have just been named by Time magazine as Person of the Year 2025. That happened 25 minutes ago. For delivering the age of thinking machines, for wowing and worrying humanity, for transforming the present and transcribing something. Anyway, so AI has been nominated as Person of the Year by Time magazine just now, if we want any confirmation that we're talking about relevant things here. Now, my question is or rather comment is to Sasha. You said when you talked about early involvement of employees and the need for training as no-brainers. And it is, for me as an employer, it is a difficult issue. I want to just bring that in. It's not so easy because, and that's linked to what Colin said. Colleagues tell me, well, you don't know it, but we are using AI across the board. We are a knowledge-producing organization, and so the request for training, the request for guidance is really bottom-up driven. And I think in that sense, it is maybe a very different situation than the introduction of other technologies. We have to come up with guidance, we have to come up with training while many people are already using it. but to a very different degrees. We have the nerds among us who are experts in AI in a way that I will never be. There's people like me who think that they're not even using AI. I know that I am in practice, but I don't realize it. And then we have everybody in between. So what kind of training are we going to provide in such a context? So I just want to thank you, Sasha, because you bring in a no-brainer, which is actually a brainer, I think, for many employers and employees. And then just very quick to Regine, I want to believe everything you say. It just sounds too rosy to me. What about the risks of all those fantastic tools that you're implementing? And what about the accidents that are happening while you test all that, etc.? I would like you to talk a little bit also about the risks and not only about the benefits of all this. Thank you.
Would you like to add anything, sir?
I don't know. I could. No, I mean, no. You mentioned something really important, because of course that no-brainer is if you deploy as an employer, if you deploy the technology. We have the specific issue in AI based or specifically large language models, because we also have a survey that was conducted last year, 2024, about 8,000 people, and we found 60% of the people said, I'm using AI such as large language models, and 50% of them said, yeah, but it wasn't introduced by my employer. And that is a specific problem, because we have people using these systems, and if the employer doesn't know the employer, it's tough to provide the proper training. So value point. Don't argue on that. Second one, on teaching and training, I think also one point I would make there is the good thing about AI-based systems and robots is we are reaching a goal of a good work system design or ergonomics or human factors engineering, because we can more and more individualize, because the AI doesn't care what I know, what I can, she can, he, whatever, it can adapt. The robot can adapt. He can give it whatever my body height or my stature is. So for the teaching, I would also say we can make good benefits of these systems, because they can teach us how to proper interact with them, and they know what we can do and help us if we properly use these systems. So yeah, these are just a remark.
Amy, would you like to add something before the coffee break?
Yeah, very quickly. But it might look rosy to you, but we are definitely putting a lot of effort in such solutions. And before a solution goes live, there's a lot of testing and assessments together with the suppliers, and we really make sure that the systems are safe to use. So we are not just launching them, but we have the engineers working very closely with our EHS experts and also with the employees. And we haven't had any accident with those kind of systems, neither with our cobots nor with the robot station. So really, that's all designed in a very, very precautionary way.
Thank you. Demi?
Yes. We heard this morning, thank you. We heard this morning that especially machine learning AI can be unpredictable and inherently risky. And I think that Collins has also confirmed in a way, and I think nobody can argue against it at this point. And we also emphasize the importance of the social dialogue or exchanging, introducing a technology and consulting your workers on that. But if these machine learning AIs are inherently unsafe or risky, how can you ever have a meaningful discussion in a company on something that you cannot really, with 100% safety, predict? Does it make sense?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So with a background of a control engineer and looking at various standards relating to another area I work in, functional safety, is that it very often now does the same as it used to do with systems engineering with complex components. It says you can have your unpredictable complex component there, but it must be in parallel with something that's predictable, and there must be a means of detecting an issue with the unpredictable element, taking it out of the system and putting in a predicted element, even if that predictive element gives you a reduced capability, at least the system can be recorded as having an issue and nobody gets injured. So certainly from my point of view, I say ML used in control systems is not safe because it's not predictable. And I argue with some academics who say they can make it, and I say your feature analysis doesn't cut the ice when it comes to safety. And so therefore have the ML, but have something that wraps around it that's predictable and whose performance or whose failure to perform can be given a probability of failure on demand. And then at least you've got a base level that you already work into with existing systems. Don't trust the AI, but use it, but make sure you've got something around it. Lots of people will argue with me on that, but yeah.
Yeah, no, just one additional sentence from my end. AI should be used for, not to replace other safety systems. Like in a robot station, it cannot be used to replace any other guarding. So the guarding must be in place anyway. We can only use it for additional safety because it's, as Colin just said, it's not yet reliable enough. It might be at one point in time, but not now. So it can only be in addition, on top of what we have anyway in place.
Thank you so much. I know we have questions, but we need to just go to the coffee break. Why don't we have the coffee break now and then come back at 4:45 for the panel? Thank you.
Okay, colleagues, we're going to get started if technically everything is under control. Yes, it is. Okay, good. First, an announcement. This access to one of the rooms of the hotel has been found here. Somebody misses their key card to their room. You can come and pick it up with Dominique, who is right here. So that was lost and hopefully will be found again soon. All right, so this is the the die-hard session for the people who are really committed to the topic at the end, and I'm very happy that the owner of the card has been found. Excellent. So this is the die-hard session for the people who are really committed to the topic and want to stay until the end of the day. There's a bit less of us, but still many people. So what we're going to do, for me, this is the most important session, of course, of today. This is the crowd from the E2I, all of the colleagues, well, not all of them, but most of the colleagues who are working on artificial intelligence, on occupational health and safety. And we want to hear from them what they are doing at the Institute. Each of them will be given exactly 5 minutes to introduce their work. So really brief, really concise. That will leave us a little bit of time for exchange, for discussion, for questions, for suggestions also. This is your moment also because, you know, we are now working, we're now preparing, as we all know, our next work program for the next year. We still have some scope for great ideas on what kind of research that we want to put on our agenda. So if you want to influence our work program, our research agenda, this is the moment. Okay, so I know it's a bit odd, but I want to start with Wouter, not because he's the guy in the panel. No, it's a bit weird, I know. But he has said that he wanted to talk about what we know about the actual spread of and use of AI at work. And I think that is very good just to have that as a broad brush picture for us. And then he may also want to say something, I don't know, because, well, it's Wouter. What impact are we seeing on the content of jobs and how best to make the most of these new technologies? All of that, of course, in 5 minutes or less. Wouter, please, the floor is yours.
Of course. Thank you very much. Can you all hear me? So this is a big moment for me. I'm not normally allowed to speak in front of so many people. So it's very special that I get the chance to actually start this sort of conversation. But thank you very much for the invitation, for the really interesting talks so far. I will essentially recap some of that, give a sort of short overview of the sort of work we're looking at, we're reading, and how we're using that for the work we're doing. And I mainly will draw on some of the work I've been doing on digitalization and the link with jobs and wage inequality more generally, but also especially on a project that I'm doing together with Sylvia, that Sylvia's leading on collective bargaining and how to make the most of artificial intelligence and algorithmic management at work. So this will be drawing a lot on that. That's my first minute gone, so I will really focus now on what I wanted to say. So first of all, I think it's come out very clearly from some discussions already. We're having a new iteration of technological innovation and digitalization, but we can also still learn from past automation drives from the past waves. And I think there it's clear that there's not been great replacement of labor so far. Generally, more jobs were created, but of course, there's winners and losers. And what is really important is the extent to which the way in which these new technologies get introduced at work. I think there have been some very nice examples of the role of trade unions and workers in trying to make the most of this. I see that as well when we're looking at the longer term on how new technologies have changed the work being done, inequality and employment. We see that where workers are involved, there's first of all a more dedicated use of technology really tied into the work that's actually being done. We see less of this inequality increasing. And we see that that's really crucial in making the most of it. So that's really the theme of what I wanted to say. Then I think it was very clear from the EU OSHA presentation, where there was a really interesting survey on how AI and AM are being used. But at the moment, it seems like every big international institution is coming out with its own survey. So we've had Eurofound, we're having the JRC, and there's been a lot of other works as well. We've done some work on platforms before. And what we see from that is that there is an increase in the use of AI, but it's still not so massive. We're between 12-15% or something were the latest estimates I saw really using AI at work, with some variations depending on how you're seeing. But I think what might be even more important to look at is algorithmic management. So this is also what we saw first when we looked at the platform economy in 2021. The use of algorithms and systems to control tasks and to control the allocation of tasks, but also the evaluation of workers. In the platform economy, this was tiny, but we're seeing this big spread towards a more traditional economy, with estimates between 15 and 20% of people getting their tasks allocated by these systems, and about 10-12% already being reviewed in some extent. So really managerial tasks being given out. And when you're looking at employers, the numbers are far higher. A lot of firms are using these systems, and it's this sort of spread that I think is really important, and that will have a big impact, or is already having a big impact on tasks people do. So not necessarily replacing work as a whole, changing the contents. We've heard a lot of examples of this already, but there's positive possible impacts where the more boring parts get taken away, the more dangerous parts. The more negative impacts are the greater intensity, the lower autonomy, and the feelings of stress and psychosocial risks. And this is where, and that's the project that Sylvia and I are doing, where we're looking at across 8 EU countries, what is happening not only in terms of regulation, because regulation is coming also at the EU and national level, but specifically in terms of worker involvement, in terms of collective agreements at the firm and the sectoral level. And we're seeing that this is slowly catching up. So there are some growths, especially in sectors heavily impacted. Think the creative sector, think fintech. This is where it's really growing a lot. But we're also seeing some impact on wider aspects. The key elements that are being negotiated on are what's happening with the data, what's happening in terms of monitoring, how does this impact the intensity of work, and then the delivering of training. And also, if we're looking at sort of survey data we have, we do see that where there are workers' representations, where there are unions, where are still strong, you're seeing a bigger use of training, a bigger involvement in the adoption of new technology. And this, I think, is really the way to make the most of it, to reduce the inequality-making effect, and to really make the most of the opportunities offered. I'm now gonna just stop because I'm at 5 exactly. Thanks very much.
Yes. I'm very impressed, Wouter, both by the research that you've presented and by the timing of your intervention. Thanks for that. And I'm very sorry that you feel that you don't get enough chances to speak before a broader, but that was a joke, of course, yes. Okay, I was going to give the floor to another colleague, but since you've mentioned Sylvia several times yourself, I think that is an indication that Sylvia needs to speak next. I forgot to introduce Wouter, by the way. Wouter Zwissen is a senior researcher at the ETUI, and Sylvia Rainona is also a senior researcher. These are all senior researchers at the ETUI. Voila, it's done. Sylvia, 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Bart. Thank you, Wouter, for making the link with the project you're doing together. So yeah, I will use this 5 minutes to provide a bit of a collective labor law approach to the use of AI. This is indeed, I'm a labor lawyer and I look at collective labor rights. So when the challenge here is to try to understand how to apply existing normative frameworks, so existing information consultation rights, existing collective bargaining, industrial relations structure to a world of work which is dramatically being and currently being changed and evolving through the use of technology. So first, let me point a few, I call it disruptive challenges, and these can be identified, well, one and foremost in, we can take it in more physical dimension. So there is a dismantling of physical workplaces that goes along with the use of digital technology and AI among of them. So we take the example of platform economy where algorithmic management was used. We take the example of the ability of employer relying a lot on technology to outsource or allow work to be conducted remotely. So we have a situation where the holder of contractual or managerial power is not necessarily in the same premise, physical environment, but nevertheless, because of the use of very sophisticated technology, is able to conduct control and disciplinary power on the workers. So we have this mantle of this more spatial dimension that, however, is the dimension that defines the scope of application of labor law. So the attribution of duties and obligation on the employer. So you have this first dimension. Then we've seen through research conducted by many of also people who are in the room here, that AI, algorithm management, is enabling a contractual distancing, we can call it, between the worker and the actual holder of the contractual power. In a way, technology is mediating the exercise of control and disciplinary power, and workers or trade unions, worker representatives have more difficult to identify the source of that power, and therefore to go to knock the door and negotiate how working conditions are defined or the work organization is shaped. Even when that occurs, because, for instance, we take an example of platform economy where there have been more research now, the field is almost saturated. we have noticed that even then, when it's quite clear who is the holder of course, the bargaining power, even then, negotiating meaningful collective bargaining agreement can be tricky because of the component of the algorithm management or the technology. Workers and trade union often they do address that element together with the employer, but they do remain, let's say, on the periphery of the core labor standards. So difficultly wages are redefined in view of the impact of technology, because we know AI, algorithm management, can enhance productivity, so they allow the employer to be able to extract more value from the work performance. But this narrative, this discourse is difficultly translated into the contractual agreement at the end of the day. This is just an example. And this leads me to this information asymmetry between the worker side and employer side on how technology is actually enabling a new distribution of value within the labor relationship. Employers are able to extract more, workers are not able to demand a corresponding amount of value. This we see that is more, this dynamic can be taken in different shapes. We have algorithmic management where the exchange is higher productivity because the employer is able to exercise stricter control and surveillance. But we also seen that in generative AI, for instance, in the creative sector, also in the research sector, where we are using tools or actors' performance use tools, which are not necessarily demanded or required by the employer, but nevertheless, they are allowing extraction of value in terms of data and creative performance to a third entity, which is not necessarily the employer, but nevertheless, they are not compensated for that. So we have new dynamic in the usual linear bargaining relationship that we used to be familiar with. So where do we, was really to simplify, but where do we go from here? So I think it would be very important for the regulatory framework, 1 minute to go, the regulatory framework and the social partners, unions, worker representative, to be able to allocate right or agency or accountability at the right level. So it's a challenge, perhaps it's impossible, we need to find a way to do that. But assuming that the employment relationship define the actual holder of the bargaining power, that I think is a myth now. So we need to find different ways, and regulation is really important. We do see new duplication of accountability. In the AI Act, there is a provider and there is a developer, there is a controller. In the machinery regulation, we have different holder of accountability. So I think this approach could be very useful also for labor right at large and not only for health and safety. I will close with that and give the word back to Bart.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Sylvia, for explaining to us. I know in very little time at the disruption of the application of the effectiveness of labor law, amongst other topics. Now I want to pass on to Aida. I think, Aida, it's fair to say that you started research at the E2I on artificial intelligence many years ago. Well, several years ago, not that many, several years ago, and you continue to do so within the Foresight unit. I believe that you wanted to talk, amongst others, about the outreach of automated monitoring systems and where are the legal and ethical limits. Please, 5 minutes, Aida.
Thank you, Bart, and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. I would like to talk to you about exactly how far automated monitoring systems are already reaching in practice, and where the legal and also the ethical red lines should be drawn if we want to preserve the provincial culture. So I will do that in 3 steps. The first one is the reach, of course, which monitoring devices cover different layers of monitoring. The first one, the obvious, the physical environment, where we have the machine sensors at badges that we have observed during the day, I hope. The second one, the layer of our bodies, the embodiment of those monitoring aspects, which is wearables and tracking aspects regarding how fast our heart beats or how fast we move. And the third layer, which is the most interesting one for me, is the cognitive and emotional dimension of the human being, which is really the dignity and the integrity of the human as such, which claim to track things like signals like fatigue and attention and sleep, and whether we are happy or not, and the level of engagement and mood, perhaps the level of attention too. So this is where in these 3 dimensions, this is where I claim that monitoring is moving from real monitoring to deep surveillance, and they're not the same thing. So we are moving from these areas related to the actual job, the contractual aspect of what we have to do, into working or monitoring beyond the human and beyond the work and the contractual arrangements. The second thing is, besides the outreach, then why? The purpose. What for monitoring? What are we using it? So many of these systems are sold as safety tools, as you all know, but their functionality it's really to maximize efficiency / productivity. So it is not the same. In technology governance, we talk about purpose of the technology. And we need to distinguish a technological use, whether it's purpose for safety or purpose for efficiency. This is how we understand how we govern technology, or how we do risk assessment in OSH or in data protection. So, and here we see that some of the safety monitoring tools are not really monitoring, are really devices that do calculate efficiency and productivity. And this is when we start asking questions. So why do we have them for? Are they really preventing something? Are they really covering a preventive need? So this is when, at this point, we are not talking about really prevention, but we're talking about what you all know, which is algorithmic management. The third thing is, just because I'm with the health and safety community and I am a little bit part of that, we're talking about the data of accidents. And we know that Eurostat every year or 2 years, they provide these statistics on accidents and how many deaths we have had in the EU or fatal accidents. And actually, in the latest iteration of the survey, 2023, the level of accidents didn't reduce. And this is, well, it just decreased like 5%, which is not really significant compared to 2022, 21, and maybe 2017. But the long-term decline in fatal accidents rates also clearly predates the scale of or the use of AI systems. So we don't see whether these famous AI systems for preventing accidents and monitoring are really working. So this is also something that we haven't been able to capture. We haven't seen, there is no clear sign that the aggregate effect of AI is being seen in the reduction of accidents or fatal accidents. Where is that data? There is no, it doesn't exist. So in OSH, for OSH practitioners concretely, what are the 3 questions that I want to discuss or I want to ask you or to reflect? The first one is the fact that in which cases monitoring shifts away from purely and genuine worker protection. If monitoring has to help prevent and invite to dialogue with the employers and practitioners and governments, which is the culture of prevention that you talk about it, which is really human. When are we substituting that for a monitoring device or a sensor or a buzz? Is that going into the prevention culture, or are you just doing just wishy-washy stuff with the fancy tools? The second one is there a less intrusive alternative? We have been monitoring work for many, many years with lots of sorts of methods that we know they work. Why do we have to use more invasive and data-consuming intrusive mechanism to do exactly the same thing when we know that we have done it before and it works quite well because we can talk to people and not just send a buzz through a system? And the third one, is it really necessary and proportionate? These are legal questions that really translate into practice of what workers are doing and how we manage monitoring. The closing remark that I would like to say is that unless we embed these legal and ethical limits to automated monitoring, we might be hollowing out the culture of prevention and replacing with automated prevention. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ada, for a crisp, clear presentation and for raising 3 important questions that may come up during the discussion. At least that's what I hope. I would like to move on to Agnieszka, who is a senior researcher at the ETY as well. Still, yes, they all are. Agnieszka, please, 5 minutes.
Thank you so much. So I will move to the focus of my research, which is more related to cognitive work. And when AI is introduced as a tool to enhance cognitive work, what might be the impact on workers, on perceived job quality and broader outcomes for this type of work. So I've been witnessing some of the events on AI, most of them closer to the commission, so closer to the policy level. And there was a lot of enthusiasm actually on the effect of AI in cognitive work. The word complementarity, enhancement, assessment was used many, many times. And the belief conveyed by the speakers was that we gain through AI freedom from really boring tasks, repetitive tasks, simple, low value added. And what is left, actually expressed in really nice words, is the human essence of work. So something that robots cannot perform. They're not yet as well calibrated, but then that leaves us humans with this best part. And the picture is really optimistic for the current state and also for the future. And then looking at the evidence that I collect in my own fieldwork, I really don't get much of the confirmation of this optimistic and very rosy and very nice picture. It's actually the opposite. So the workers I interviewed, they point to the fact that the tools, AI-based tools, are actually sold or marketed as being able to perform the highest level of skills in a given area, because you don't sell a tool as the producer. Well, this performs like really simple things. You can use the calculator also for this, but you can also buy our tool. No, they are marketed as achieve at work. Some workers complained that actually the tool would be useful if it was doing the simple search, which is very tiring. It would complement or assist in performing the task and not do the core of the task, where the human worker is left in the role of the controller or a verification of the output provided by the machine. So the correcting and controlling function to what used to be the core element of one's job. And that produces quite a lot of frustration among workers. That translates then into health and safety language, so psychosocial risks, burnout, more stress, decreased motivation, the lack of decrease in the meaningfulness of work, so meaninglessness feeling of performing simple tasks that are just around the AI. And that's accompanied by the perception that the output of AI is lower than what the person could perform if they were just left to their own devices and let flourish their creativity. So that then raises the question also of what happens with skills of the people who are trained to perform certain occupation. They are experts in what they do, but slowly, gradually, the core expertise is being taken away, so they don't exercise the core skill. What happens? The skill erodes, and that was also the intuition I think conveyed already in the panel earlier today. You don't use it, you lose it. That's with the physical fitness, that's with capabilities, that's with the skills. So there is also the economic and human cost in terms of the long-term perspective of what happens to the human expertise. Then when workers comment that they are reduced to the corrector or controller of AI tool, what they do and what Sylvia mentioned, they actually feed in their own data in correcting the tool, so making it better. They train their own replacement in a way. Sometimes they do it as the job. So there are data centers when workers, the so-called data work, was also mentioned today, their job is to categorize data, prepare data for the AI. But in many occupations, this is happening on the side. When you correct large language model in its translation, actually you leave this expertise of yours. You help to improve the tool, but the economic gain is not shared with you. The productivity is passed on to the owners of that. And also the perception of training your own replacement is not the best one. And perhaps I will just round off by a more general comment of what happens to work when it's being automated, but also controlled or scheduled, managed by a digital device. What the work process needs to become is to become datafied, the data points. So every human activity, and that's especially problematic in cognitive and expert work, needs to be reduced into simple codified tasks that can be compartmentalized, measured, and then allocated in time across people. So that also simplifies work in itself. The management of work becomes much more machine-like and not human-like. And the content is also simplified. Much of that, of the richness can be lost. So that's mostly for the challenges, just to counterbalance all the optimistic narrative coming from other conferences. And thank you very much for the attention.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Excellent. Thank you very much, Agnieszka. Don't use it, you lose it. Training your own replacement. Thanks for that sobering picture of how AI is lived by real workers in real workplaces. Menekşe, last but certainly not least, I think we will leave it to you, building also on what Aida said. to look a bit towards the future. How do you see AI influencing workplaces in the coming years? And what opportunities and benefits could AI bring to worker safety and well-being, which is, of course, the topic of the event. Now, after that, we still have a little bit of time for your questions, for your suggestions, and your attempts to lobby our next work program. Menexe, 5 minutes, please.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I think mine is going to be a little bit different because I am the only ergonomist. And after a legal perspective, I'm going to give an ergonomics and OSH perspective. For me, AI is expected to change how the work is designed and managed. Like it can support smarter work design by like analyzing posture, movement patterns, workload, and fatigue in real time, which allow organization to reduce physical strain and prevent injuries before they can even occur. And some of the opportunities and benefit that could bring to worker safety and well-being, I believe AI offers some opportunities to improve worker safety and well-being by enabling risk detection, real-time ergonomic feedback, and data-driven prevention strategies. For the ergonomic feedback, I don't know if any of you, but I know some of you know ergonomic risk assessments. The subjective nature of this ergonomic risk assessment, you need to go into the field and make measurements manually, and you need to stop the worker while they're working, really intervene workers to get measurements right away, to be able to detect if the task is hazardous or not hazardous. With the sensor technology and the machine learning algorithm right now, we can actually automate these risk detection methodology, which I actually did one of my research. We just try to automatically detect risk with using 5 sensor technologies in the field to develop machine learning algorithms. And another example, AI-powered sensors in computer vision, another aspect, can identify unsafe postures or repetitive strain in high-risk tasks, and which can improve and also provide immediate corrective guidance. And AI can also reduce some exposure to dangerous environments by automating hazardous tasks or supporting workers with exoskeletons. We have been talking about all the robotics and beyond physical safety, AI can support mental well-being by identifying patterns of fatigue, stress, or excessive workload, allowing organizations to intervene earlier and build healthier and more sustainable work systems. But of course, as a researcher, we're always looking for positive ways and also like negative ways and what's going to happen afterwards. As a researcher also, I would like to see more research on how AI-powered monitoring systems can improve safety without compromising worker privacy and autonomy. And this balance is still poorly understood, and it would be critical as AI becomes more integrated into workplaces. That was my summary of the AI, but thank you so much for participating.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Menexe, and amazing job done, colleagues, in such a short amount of time, proposing and introducing this amount of super rich research that we do at the ETUI. I see a colleague flagging, but let's first hear from the crowds who haven't spoken yet. I think you have spoken as well. You get a chance to speak as well. I think the gentleman. Okay, let's start with the young folks over there, and then we come to the more experienced researchers here. If you could be very brief in your comment or question and briefly say where you work, that would be great. And your name.
Yeah, hi, my name's Walter. I study at Humboldt. I study algorithmic management, or I'm looking into it. And I wanted to ask on something that hasn't been touched on yet, perhaps because we're in the shadow of the omnibus and these trade wars, but there was a proposal on algorithmic management that came from the parliament and a report published on it. So I just wanted to hear, I suppose, from Wouter. And so if you're optimistic about a proposal like this and where you see perhaps some emancipatory sort of potential in things like negotiating work time reductions, or if it covers like a gap that is missing in the legal framework. I think they suggested it would on that, algorithm management's covered on platform work and not yet in normal workspaces. So yeah, your optimism on that front, or where you see it heading.
Good afternoon. My name is Katrin Bink. I'm working at the ETUC. I would like to mention one huge problem that I have, and that is, thank you for mentioning it, Ida, it's accidents. If I cannot show that there are accidents with machines using AI, it means there are no accidents. And it means there is no evidence And I cannot ask the Commission, I cannot ask for more safety requirements, because if there are no accidents, there's nothing to do. The problem that we see is the accident collection at member states level. Either it's very broad and you cannot really see where the problem is, or it is too granular, or I'm asking myself, in every member states where they collect accidents, is there a specific entry to say, here we had a problem with a machine that is using AI, and what exactly was the problem? Because it's such a new technology. Are we collecting this specific data on AI? I don't think so. And then we have accidents collection, only collecting a certain type of data, but do we also collect data about the close calls and the near misses, because they give a lot of interesting information about something that will be an accident next time? Do we collect data about, for example, stress I'm having with working with a machine that is using AI and is giving me a lot of stress? And then the last thing that I'm going to say, it's happening at the time when the European Commission is on a race to make everything more simpler, to cut all or a lot of reporting requirements. But if we don't have the reporting, then I'm again alone. I don't have evidence. And for every study or for any information I'm putting forward, you have the industry putting 5 or 10 studies forward, and I cannot convince the European Commission. So this is something which is really troubling me a lot. And because Ada mentioned it, I wanted to raise it's a problem for us too. Thank you.
We need a little bit of discipline here. So we're going to move to the front, and then I'll give you the floor afterwards. So please.
There was a gentleman there as well. I actually want to follow up that a comment. I completely agree, because when we think about safety critical systems, we have a very clear notion of safety. Like, for example, if we want to have a satellite and we want to use kind of automated task in the satellite, we have to verify until the end of it, and we have a set of very clear, crisp requirements of what should happen, what should not happen, and that give us basically a way to monitor, to verify, to check that the system is correct and working and doesn't harm. But in AI, in practice, it has, at least the feeling is that it has a harm, but the harm is not identifiable, right? So somehow we should be able to eliminate those kind of harm, to basically make them explicit. Maybe we should use AI, machine learning, to based on data, to find out what are exactly the issues that we are concerned about.
Many thanks. We'll move to the back of the room over there, and then we'll come back to you, sir.
Thank you, everybody, for a very interesting afternoon. I'm Anna. I work at the Swedish Municipal Workers Union. And I wonder, do you have any international perspective when it comes to ergonomics and sensors and OSH? Since I lived in Japan over 10 years ago, it was common to use like Kinect, like those devices and sensors and so on, and all those equipment to collect data to prevent accidents. And also in teaching in old homes or senior citizens' homes and so on, elderly care homes. So it's already out there 10 years ago. So is it the data? Is that the big thing now? Because the technology has been there for a very long time.
Take one or two more questions, and then we bring it back to the floor. You have been waiting for quite a while, haven't you? Yeah, it's your turn.
Thanks. So I'll be short. So I'm working in IT industry and since 40 years in AI. So I have two suggestions today. The first is concerning EU. So the EU is regressing on regulation, so GDPR and AI. And so I would like to have somebody that look at the impact for the workers of this regression. That's the first one. The second one is that most of Western world now is investing in military application, and so with hundreds of billions of dollars, of euro or whatever. So it's quite clear that this will allow the development of autonomous AI, because for military reasons, it's far more efficient than the rest. So the question is, as we saw in previous wars, all those technology will go then back to civil application. And it would be interesting to know now what all those military application will give us civil application after.
Thank you very much. Now I'm going to walk to the back of the room and pass the microphone to one of the dear colleagues from the Workers' Interest Group, I believe.
Yeah, thank you, Bart. So the more the things change, the more they remain the same. And the challenges that we have now by AI are pretty much the same changes we had in the Industrial Revolution, the same changes the trade unionists faced, just on another skin, perhaps a more modern skin. But at the time, even the Industrial Revolution was something modern. So from a sociological perspective, this is pretty much the same challenge. And what's needed here? What's needed is pretty much the same formula. It is legislation. It is legislation, because AI has its potential. It can be used or misused against the workers. And certainly the employers have an interest to use AI for productivity. That's the only interest of the employers. It's always been the same. It's productivity, it's profit making. So if there are regulations and clear regulations and enforcement of the regulations, then there is protection, and then there is a possibility for workers. Otherwise, if it's a jungle, then it's a problem for the employees. And we all know that the employers try to block any possible future directive. We've been working on this so much. So it's important that we keep on doing these events like this, and we need more research, as you were saying, because it's only through research and data that we can ask for regulation. Thank you.
Only if it's a two-hand intervention that really needs to be made. Okay, in that case, and then we pass on to Demi and we close.
Thank you very much. Try my best. I just want to, Katharina, my name, I come from the Austrian Federal Chamber of Labor, and I'm interested in your advice or in your thoughts and experiences when it comes to the social health and care sector, because it's a very special one, I think, and I think we maybe we can improve the working conditions, but also the safety conditions for patients and workers there. So maybe if you get some ideas about this special field. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad I gave you the floor after all. So we're going to wrap up with Demi. No? Yeah, you'll have your chance tomorrow, I think. Okay, so there was a comment from the colleague from ACA. Everything changes, everything is the same. A bold statement. Let's see what the speakers think of that. Two suggestions, including with regard to the military. There was a comment from the colleague from the municipal workers. What if we can't identify the harm? The colleague from ETUC flagged the issue of, I want to summarize, no data, no progress. So how can we help the ETUC and other instances? And then the question was pointed to Wouter, but maybe someone else wants to comment as well. From our young colleague, the question is, do we share his optimism? I really hope so, but I'm not sure. Who wants to go first? And you have like a minute and a half each to respond to whatever question you feel you can respond to. Menekşe.
I want to go ahead and answer the sensor question. And you're right. And I personally use sensors for 10 years already. And then the sensors are out there. And then the only thing change, they have already just collecting data. But right now, they have embedded the software system in it, and it can give you the reporting right after the data collection. And it can be either like all the ergonomic assessment tools, revised Nash lifting equation, RULA, RIBA, OKRA, or all kind of like information without knowing any background. Before we need a like OSH professional or a HSE to be able to collect, not to collect, but at least like analyze the data to come out with the reporting and the outcome. Right now, everything is in the system. And with the sensor technology, they're using computer vision in it too, to be able to automate those. I don't know if you see Regina's presentation. She was showing like a really fun, and you just need to just get the video of the person and they get the measurements in real time. It's the only thing that changed over years, but you're right, the sensor technology is already there.
Right, thank you.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Thank you, Menekşe. Sylvia, since you mentioned that for work-life balance reasons, you need to pop out at some point. I'll give you the floor first, and then you're free to go if you
I'll
need
be
to.
very brief because I think no question was directly addressed to me. But about the omnibus, so the deregulation approach, I think perhaps Aida can say more in details. But what I'm noticing is that there is I would say like a double trend, a paradox within the EU. So in one way, when it's about business innovation, so considering AI as a product in the internal market, there is this push toward deregulation, and we have indeed the omnibus that simplifies right, the application of the GDPR and AI Act. On the other hand, a few days ago, and not even a week ago, the Commission opened up a new round of consultation on a Quality Jobs Act where OSH, AI, algorithmic management were put in an agenda for future regulatory, legislative, we don't know if binding or recommendation, interventions. So I had the impression that within the Commission there are different, they call them department, DG, and they don't really have a unified view. So it's to be seen, it's interesting. And quickly on the care sector, I think that it would be interesting to see if the workers that are subject to intense algorithm management AI technology, how are they qualified? Are they employees or they're self-employed? I think this will change a lot. If we manage to reclassify or classify such workers as employees, then we, through the help of social partners, the existing labor law key could try to minimize the stress, work-related stress and OSH risk brought by technology. So that would be my input.
Thank you, Sylvia. I'm walking towards Aida because you mentioned Aida already, and I'm sure that Agnieszka will want to say something about the job quality. But before I get to Aida, I saw a very intense body language from your side. So I think you want to say something, right? I know, but say it quickly.
It's late, but just one thought that always crosses my mind also, and it's linked to your comment. How much of a doing gap do we have, or do we also need more labor inspection and more control? So is our problem really legislation, being more specific in legislation? Because we have the framework directive, it says risk assessment, it says it for all risks, and we have so much data out there. So maybe that's a bad question at 6:30, 5:35, but yeah, knowing doing gap, more labor inspection necessary, maybe even more important than research. And I didn't say that on camera as a governmental research institution.
Excellent. Aida, I think this is the time for you to come in, and we can talk about other issues tomorrow and over dinner, etc. Aida, please.
On the risk assessment, I think on the data for ETUC and linked to the risk assessment, well, we don't have, Eurostat doesn't work like that. So Eurostat only takes from fragmented sources of data from each member state who collect their data at their own capacity and capability. So, and Eurostat does fantastic work, but with the data that they have. And there is no proxy question to deal with AI today, but I hope that we are able to lobby them to tell them to add AI, how AI has been factored in or not. And I think that we have a lot of understanding of how risk assessment is done on health and safety, but also we have a lot of understanding of how risk assessment is done in data protection. And this is where I want to connect both of them, saying that sometimes some applications like real-time data collection, like sensors, are very problematic, extremely problematic, because they are going into granular data collection of body sense signals. It's over trespassing the work dimension and the intimate dimension and the dignity dimension of the individual. And it's just analyzing everything. With what metrics? That's the thing. What metric? How is it analyzed? With what parameters? How can the worker contest whether those absolutely super specific real-time data collection is really accurate? We cannot contest that really. So I think that sensors are really problematic from a data protection perspective. And looking at the military person, this is where the nitty-gritty and aspect of the military technology is coming. Sensor technology is very advanced in the military for obvious reasons. Close sensors and remote sensors together with drone and computer vision technology. So this is coming, and we are already seeing it in some workplaces. And we also have seen other issues about cognitive attention of soldiers, paying attention or managing stress during long shifts. This is also will come, and I see Bart is getting nervous, so I will speak about it. I have more examples about the military coming into the civil.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'm not nervous. I just want to avoid that people.
Really need to go hand in hand with working time regulation. So if you think what algorithmic management does to working time, it does not shorten it in a way that gives more free time to workers, either by extending the weekend or evenings or starting work late. What it does to work, it's allocating tasks more efficiently. So work is just faster paced, it's more intense, or it's more unpredictable because you can in real time match so many variables and make workers target those peak times or bad weather, depending on the type of work. So work is actually taking more time, even if it's possible to exclude low productivity time, such as a toilet break in the warehouse, because you can really measure when people are outside of their workstation. You can measure the slowdown of the machinery and then deduct this time also somehow from the payment. So there are many possibilities, and none of that is leading to the working time reduction for workers in a way that it's not reducing income with that, or it's not sacrificing other dimensions of job quality. So it's a very interesting proposition that basically, well, the progress in technological solutions should raise productivity that is shared with workers, but that requires a bit more of the in-between mediating factors such as regulation, as was mentioned. And the roadmap is really interesting animal. I will not go into much depth, but when we talk about, when it talks about digitalization, it's basically taking a hat, not of the job quality, but the hat of economic growth. That was my reading of the roadmap. And then removing any constraints, barriers, or inconvenience for employers stemming from any sort of regulation takes precedence, with the view that, the economic growth will lift all the boats and job quality will be hopefully in one of those boats. But there is nothing really targeting working conditions.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Agnieszka. Now, whether it's with regard to the Omnibus or the AI Act deregulation, any questions you want to raise tomorrow? We'll have Max Uber here in one of the panels. He's working in the cabinet of Vice President Minsato of the Commission. So any challenging questions will be you ask him. Now, Wouter, I will just stand here by the door to make sure that nobody can get out while you have the final word. Please, Wouter.
That's incredibly creepy, but I'm gonna just speak super briefly, and thank you all for your questions. I cannot add very much because there was a question on, I think a lot has been answered. So indeed the EU works in mysterious and diverse ways. There's some work where there is more direction legislation coming, possibly there's the European Parliament initiative, which I was going to pass to my colleagues because they know more about it, but since I'm last, I will just say that is happening at the same time as there is deregulation. With the data, I can only say we do need more data. I think we are getting some on stress, psychosocial risks from people working with AI, but I was very clearly indicated by the OSH team there that there is no data available, or at least not the data we want. And I'm going to stop there and leave it to Demi.
The point I made about this specific thing is that we don't, the question of Catherine, whether we have data related to specific machines, we don't, no, that was my point. So before can I close? Yes, please. Okay, then I have the mic. Take it. So I have a question for tomorrow, food for thought, because I really think we talk about many things at the same time, which are not the same. Sensors are one thing, AI is another thing, and algorithmic knowledge is then a third thing. It's not necessarily all these systems empowered by AI. That's just to make it clear. And continue the discussion tomorrow. You may close it. Take it. Take it.
Thank you so much. An amazing panel, ladies and gentlemen. A little bit of applause. The E2I team, part of the E2I team. A few practicalities. If you use the headset, please return them over there. We start tomorrow at 9 with coffee. Hope to see you there. The conference starts at 9:30 sharp. And if you haven't signed the list of participants outside, Dominique is going to pursue you until you're home because you need to sign the list. It was great, and see you all tomorrow morning. Thank you.